Hi people, just going to give it a few minutes guys. You know what the drill is with these when it comes to live streams. Always takes a few minutes to kick everything off, so just going to give it a minute to log everybody on, link up with the various things, and then we'll get going. Alright guys, a few of you probably joined on already. Just bear with me. If you are in the room, please do say hello, say hi, and as mentioned on the preview for this, everybody who watches, shares, and likes this or contributes in the chat will be entitled to some form of discount on upcoming revival tickets when we finally do come back after worldwide lockdown. So please do get involved. Do have a chat. Just give it a minute, guys. I'm just checking everything's working fine, and then I'll begin talking crap. It seems like we are rolling. Nine of you on there. How's it going, Blake? How's it going, Dana? You all right? Good stuff. Good stuff. Right. Pause that, and I can watch this back on here. Right. Hopefully, some of the chat will actually come through on here. The chat sometimes unreliable on the stream here, but they are coming through slowly. There we go. Dana's first message. Not too bad, thanks, Blake. And I will be watching the chat on. I'm borrowing the wife's phone because I use my own phone as the camera for this. So I will be watching the chat down here on my wife's phone as well as what I've got coming up on my screen in front of me. So I'll have to switch between between the couple. Hey Steve, yeah. Steve there's just mentioning my hair. Yeah, I'm going to apologise for that in advance, guys. The whole COVID thing, I did mention it on previous streams that I've done. It means that I'm just basically, I cannot be arsed with waiting around for hairdressers, messing around with that. So I'm not going out and about much. So it's just off it goes. And to be honest, when your hair's getting all sticky and annoying and you're gelling it up and all you're doing is lounging around all day, it gets all manky and everything. So solve that one by just off it all comes and leave it at that. So you can probably see a bit more of my scalp than you usually would. I've got a decent head of hair for a 40-year-old bloke. But yeah, I've just trimmed it all off, man. I've gone for the full buzz cut today. Look like I'm prepping for the army, not that they'd have me. So, right, people are joining now. I can see there's 10 or 12 people on, so might as well just start yapping on. Hello, how's it going? And welcome to Not Revival for the Gamers 2020 Part 2. And the reason I'm doing this, guys, is because, as you know, this weekend would have been the second part of our grand plan for 2020 with revival events. I am streaming this today on our Revival Facebook page, but I'm also streaming it on my Yam Yam Retro Gaming YouTube channel because I can't link the Revival one for some reason, but I will re-upload this at some point to the Revival one. I'll download it, rip it, and I'll upload it there so everyone can get a chance to view it on there in future. The reason I'm doing this is because, like I say, we were meant to be having the second part of our event this weekend. Everybody was a bit weird last year. You know, we had a brilliant 2019 event. Everybody loved it. It was the biggest one we'd ever done. We had more space than we'd ever had. We had more attractions than we ever had. We still had tons of guests. We had loads of arcades. Everybody had an absolute blast. And then everybody was a bit like, "Whoa, why are you scaling down for 2020?" And it was like, at the end of the day, we've been doing this now since, well, we started organising the first one way back in 2012, and after a while, it kind of does take its toll. You got to remember this isn't done for profit, and we do these events just because we love them. You know, we love our hobby, we love what we do, and I've said it a million times before, but it's all done non for profit. So we do it in our spare time, and when I say spare time, It virtually represents all of my time. And by the time we got to 2019, things were changing on the scene a little bit, I felt. And I feel that like things needed to go in different directions. There were a lot of events happening. The calendar was getting a bit too clogged, and everybody just needed to have their own niche and deal with it. And we've always been about the retro, so we decided to quite happily scale back a little bit and go with two smaller events to capture the main crowd, that the people who've been with us from the start. They've been going to these events for many years. They know a lot of the people at the events. They want to have a chance more to socialise than to see everything, because most of the things they've seen before. And it was no excuse to get rid of all the cool things we had. We still have a lot of rare things at the events, a lot of rare games. We have some great traders. We have some great competitions and things like that. But so there's something for everyone to enjoy. But when it came to this year, we decided to break it down, and doing two medium-sized events that equate to about the same size as one big event was a fraction of the price and about 10 times easier to do. Still the potential for as many people to turn up, or for our regulars to enjoy two doses of it. You know what I mean? Two great weekends away, and it kind of would have bookended the season this year. That was the plan. People have been asking us to do extra events every year, and so we took the choice to, made the decision immediately after last year that we weren't going to do a big one this year, and we were going to do the two smaller ones in March and November. And as it's kind of panned out, that's not exactly happened. Now, the March one, people were apprehensive about. So to kind of put everyone at ease, we decided out of our own pockets to fund the event, and we did a free event for everybody. So everybody who was a member got a chance to get free tickets for it, and for everybody else, it was like £2 in. So a chance to come to an event and enjoy arcades and pinball and loads of consoles and everything, competitions where there's prizes and everything for free. You know, we're giving something back to people, and that's what we wanted to do. But it wasn't even that. People who came had an absolute blast. People said it didn't matter what the size was; it was more about the people, it was about the atmosphere, and everybody had an absolute blast. Everybody except for me, and I'm going to apologise again. But you got to remember, I was put out as well. A few days before March's event, I was taken ill. I was doubled over in pain in my living room here, and it turned out I'd got quite a serious kidney infection and kidney stones, and I had to be admitted to hospital. And unfortunately, I was in hospital over the weekend of the event, so the event very, very nearly didn't happen at all. But thankfully, my missus and Aaron Davis, they stepped up and they took over, everything that I would have been doing, and they motivated the rest of the team, and they managed to organise and tell me that they didn't even need me. Everything went without a hitch. Plenty of people chipped in at the event. I mean, Dana as a trader, I know you're watching, mate. I know you chipped in, when you ordinarily you hadn't needed to before, but you're always one of the first guys there, and you really stepped up, mate. And I know you were there at the very end, because when I got let out of hospital, I saw you afterwards. So yeah, it just shows the kind of community feel we got for everything. And everybody said they really enjoyed it, and everyone had a blast. And even though the venue wasn't the newest, it's not the most, wasn't the most modern venue. It was a good, honest working men's club of a decent size. And even though we had a little bit of a technical problem right before doors opened, everything else worked fine. We had no hitches over the weekend. People liked the food, people liked the beer, and it was a cracking weekend. So I was psyched up, ready for November. And obviously November would have been part two. And for part two, we had some cool things planned for our event. There was new sections we wanted to do that we hadn't done for a couple of years. I mean, yes, it's using systems you may have seen before, but combinations you may not have seen before. There were certain little features we were going to do, some funky link ups. The VR, which unfortunately we had to miss in March. That was probably our first and only major COVID casualty. Don, who runs our VR section, was going to do a grander affair where he had like retro VR games. They would have had the VR arcade games and stuff in there. Link up Doom 2, Doom Classic, I think it is, and everything over VR, and it's all set and ready to go. But unfortunately, him and his missus were taken ill right before the event, and so they had to withdraw pretty much on the morning of the event, which was a damn shame. And they were all set to go, ready for November. We had people who unfortunately missed March, like some of our arcade guys. They were all set to come for November and bring their collections. We would have had the pins back. We'd have had a different set of traders. The plan was to have a different set of traders pretty much in March to what we had in November. And we were even talking about doing an outdoor marquee with some extra stuff in, and didn't pan out, unfortunately, guys. I'm sorry about that, but this COVID situation it's turned the world upside down. Let's be honest. I know people out there are, everybody out there is struggling. Everybody out there has had a tough year. Let's not beat around the bush. This COVID thing, we've never seen anything like it in our lifetimes. I don't think we'll see anything like it again in our lifetimes. Touch wood. And whichever way you kind of feel on the whole subject, there's no denying that you've got to kind of help get the country back on its feet. You've got to kind of help everybody stay safe. And the events thing, it had to be called. There was no two ways about it. There's a lot more things which should be called, in order to stop the spread of the infection. But that's all in the hands of the government now. There's not a lot we can do about it as a population. Now, the sector hardest hit by all this, of course, is the entertainment industry, hospitality, entertainment, and the arts and things like that. And obviously, a big part of that is events. And of course, with the events, we were going to be hit. Some of the big players, like Replay Events, of course, will have been hit. And people know we have some history with Replay Events. They are the biggest guys out there doing it, and kudos to them. They do it as a full business, and this kind of thing doesn't come easy. And it was hard to know that people were going to be out of work, people were going to be losing jobs, and people who put a lot of effort in over the years were unfortunately going to be, unable to make a buck during this time. It's a bit of a shame. We have the advantage, you see, in that with what we do, this is a part-time thing. This is on the side of what we do. Most of our team have got full-time jobs. Most of them have got, other vocations, and some of them were taking entirely new turns in life, round about now. And so Revival is always been like a side project. For me, though, I'm in a very different position, and Revival is kind of my main focus. But I do have a lot of other side projects, and when things get tough like this, things kind of have to go on the sideline anyway. But at least we know that when we return, we don't have those financial commitments riding on the fact that we do Revival. So we can return at any time. Now, a lot of smaller events had already stopped operating last year and the year before. A lot of bigger ones have said they've stopped and they won't come back. You don't know how it will impact them. But we will be back. Whatever happens, we will be back. This is a hobby thing for us. We love what we do. The team may change a little bit. Some of the regular faces may come and go. We've seen that over the years anyway. But the good news is that we all love what we do, the main team, and we want to do it again. And because nothing's riding on it, as soon as this situation becomes a lot safer, things become fully resolved, we can come back. So don't panic. There's been a lot of event companies out there who've been like, oh, we'll get back, but we'll be back in December, we'll be back in January, we're back in February. We haven't gone down that road. We've said we'll wait till it's all clear, so we haven't got to disappoint anybody and cancel events, because cancelling events is worse than not hosting them. There's no point hyping people up to let them down when they start booking hotels and things like that. So we've said we will wait until the all clear is given. And to be honest, the way things are panning out at the moment, we don't expect that to be until around the end of the financial year. Now, I'm going to say now, I called this way back when, because immediately after, I said we would aim for November, but we didn't know it would happen. As summer progressed, it was pretty obvious this was going to pan out until Christmas. And then when I finally made my video back in September discussing where we were going and what we were going to be doing, it became evident then, I had a feeling that this would continue and they would write off this financial year. And of course, the financial year run until March. Now, of course, just 2 days before this video, there was an announcement in the House of Commons that the furlough scheme is being extended until March. So that gives you a kind of inside look at where the government thinks this is going to go. and how long this thing is going to play out over. Even when things start to be lifted after Christmas and into the new year, it's going to be many more months before they ease the restrictions on mass public gatherings until they start rolling out, you know, what they call immunisation and things like that. Until they start rolling that out, they won't allow big gatherings. I know probably sports and things like that will do because there's big money involved and they always bow down to money. But people like us doing small events, conventions, conferences, that industry was already kind of last. If you ever look into the regulations, our industry was the very last in the considerations, and the first guidance we actually got didn't even arrive until July, and it said that best case scenario there'd be a very slow return to conferences starting from October if everything cleared up. And even those restrictions, that was when we made the call and said this sounds crap to us because they basically want to turn events into a pre-booked, pre-arranged, organised, pay on the door to stand in line and queue all day in set time segments. Now that's not how a convention runs. A convention is the freedom to socialise with people. With our events, it's the freedom to go up and play whatever you want to play without needing to bleach your hands between and go on an arcade machine, you know. And it's weird that society's gone that way, and it's weird enough, and people will be more cautious as it is. But if we were to hold an event where you've even got to do that, I've said it's not even worth our trouble because our events are all about the social and not about making money. But what we do have to consider is our traders have to make money because traders are the biggest part of the event's initial funding because they pay for spots. That's how we pay for our venues. And of course, if they don't make their buck, we get it in the air. You know, nobody else gets it in the air. We get it in the air. We have to make sure everybody comes, everybody's having a good time, and everybody's spending. And people do thankfully at our events. Might not be the biggest crowd on earth, but everybody's in a good mood, and so everybody will buy things and trade with their friends and do deals with traders and buy all kinds of collectibles. They'll happily throw a lot of money behind the bar, which keeps our venues happy. And all that vibe would be killed with the current conditions we've got to live by, and the restrictions they're putting in place for us. So that is why we're not returning yet, and that was why I said we'd be looking. We wouldn't even be thinking about an event until after Christmas in terms of planning. We'll still need quite a while to plan it, but I said realistically, I couldn't see anything happening, real groundwork being put in by us until after March. And the way the government have done the announcement with the furlough, I think that is definitely going to be the case. This is a long-term thing, guys. The whole phrase "the new normal" is it's terrible, and I don't like it, and I don't like catchphrases and things like that. But it is unfortunately true, and until we get that dead cert, we're all clear. We're going to be back. There's no risk of cancellation. We're not even going to entertain it because we don't want to risk you, and we don't want to go down as having hosted a shite event that we don't care about, and our regulars will think, well, this has gone downhill. There's no point doing that. It makes no difference to us whether we do it or not, except in here. So there's no point us holding a crap event that just buries what we do. We've put too much work in over the years, and it wouldn't be fair to anybody out there to have to turn up to a bad event, that we always hype up because we know it's going to be a blast. Right, so I've got chat going on in a couple of places here, guys. I don't know why, but the unified chat I have on the main page here only captures a fraction of the comments that are made. I don't know if it's kind of passing fast enough, so I'm going to refer to both, and every so often I'm just going to go to the chat threads and reference everybody. Hi, Steve. Sorry I didn't say it a few minutes ago. Hi, Dave. Great to see you there, mate. Dave, by the way, guys, on this list, Dave is a member of the Southwest Amiga group. They're the guys who, for the last couple of years, have been furnishing us with everything great that's come from Commodore. They've been bringing wicked CD TVs, all the Amiga assortments that we need, all kinds of manner of crazy and wacky things in that field. And they really know their stuff, and people like what they've been bringing in. And the last couple of years, Dave kind of headed that up, if you know what I mean. So fair play to him. He's been also doing some side work for an arcade down south, which unfortunately has had to fold because of how the conditions have gone for COVID. So that's a bit of a sad situation. So you can see everybody's infected in different ways on this, but great bloke, and a shout out to all the guys at Swag. Steve Erickson, of course, guys, he's part of Retro Asylum, and of course they did our talks for the majority of the time we were back after Chris Wilkins left us back in 2014 after the first couple of events, and they took over doing our talks for us and did an amazing job for a couple of years. But you know, life stresses as they were, they unfortunately couldn't do 2019 because there just weren't enough of them and enough spare time to organise it all. And we are looking to shake things up and hopefully get those guys back in to help us do it for the next big event that we do. So, Steve, please have a word with the guys because I will be in touch at some point soon, and I'd love to hear what suggestions you guys got and see about getting you guys back in to do another big event for us. Sai, hi mate, local guy, great guy. First came to our events, I think, last year, and is a big fan of him now. And he's a great guy. He does some wicked YouTube stuff. See all the people we've got logging on here, guys. This is what I mean about revival being a social thing. Just because you might not necessarily know us all, you can get to know everybody just by knowing one person. I'll introduce you to anybody. If I see good people in the crowd, I'll introduce two people. They get talking, off they go. That's the kind of place revival is. That's what we're all missing this weekend, I feel. And by introducing a few of these guys to you, you might shoot them a message or look at what they do, and you can kind of become part of the community if you're not already. If you're a bit of an outsider in all this, you don't need to be. Revival's very inclusive, and anybody who comes will make feel at home. And if you want to make some new friends in a shared hobby, there's plenty of people here who will give you the time of day. They will discuss and share all of their hobby, all of their niche interests. We're not all from the same background. People like myself, my background is, I'm a long time gamer anyway, but my background and my heart and soul are in arcades. That's where I come from. But I do also love all corners of retro gaming. Then we've got other guys who they love their home computers. Some people love their handhelds. Some people love projects, and hobbyist computers. Some people are hardcore on one system, Some Spectrum guys they're really all about that. The chiptune artists, there's so many different people on this scene, but we all come together, and that's what I always wanted to do, was bring all of these different scenes together in what we do for no other reason than to just have a good time and sharing our hobby and maybe just expand your mind a little. Um, Looking at the chats down here. Hi Scott Brand, how's it going, mate? I'm glad you were able to come in March, mate. We hooked that up for you. In fact, I was watching your video back yesterday on our revival playlist from the event, and I'm so glad you're able to make it, mate. And I'm so glad it did you a lot of favours after an unfortunate 2019. And I'm glad that you came back and you're back and ready to be part of the scene again. I know things have kind of gone a bit weird this year anyway, but I understand that you're doing well, and you found some new interests and some new people in your life, which are really cool for you, mate. And I'm really pleased everything's working out for you. And shout out to Sai. He's known as Sega Zombie on YouTube, and he has got a pretty cool channel there. So go and check that out, guys. I know a lot of you already watch what he does. He's a big Sega collector and a really nice guy as well. So you'll see him at a lot of events, mixing with a lot of the usual crowd. So go and say hello to Scott if you see him in person, and check out his YouTube channel. Andy Johnson, how's it going, mate? Good to see you joining the stream. I know you follow a lot of my streams anyway. A guy after my own heart, Andy. Loves his Neo Geo stuff, loves his SNK. Recently started getting into arcades. One of the first ones he bought, in fact. He bought an Area 51 cabinet off me, which I unfortunately no longer had room for, and he's done that up really well, and he's now got that in his home. So, it kind of set him off on a path. He's now got several of these little Dino King cabinets, these Sega things that he's converting to various things, and he's always up to something interesting. Really nice guy. Always comes to the events with his missus. Always got time for anybody. Sullivan Gill, love revival events. Glad to hear all this positivity on it coming back. Enjoyed the smaller March event. Thank you very much for that, Sully. Appreciate that. We only had one unusually strange. It was weird. We do get some strange things, unfortunately, in terms of comments. And One chap in particular did say, I can't believe how small it was. It wasn't half a day, and then I kind of reminded him that it was free, and so if you do feel like you don't get your money worth for free, then I don't know what we can really do to help that. But we do try and keep everyone sweet, and usually when somebody does have an objection to something, we'll always address it. But I think most people did enjoy March, and for anybody who didn't, we've not gone away from doing big events, altogether. We were just taking a bit of a change this year. We're not something like I say, we don't do it for a business. So every time we do an event, we try to mix it up. So we want people to come to the events, and every time it's different. Just because something is smaller doesn't mean it's worse. Just because something is bigger doesn't mean it's worse. Something might be more social, something might be more focused on talks or people there. And that's what Revival's about. It's about bringing something different every single time. The only thing we've never got into really is doing the markets, and the reason we don't is because there's other people out there who already do market type events. I've already mentioned Replay. Steve Smith from Retro Events, he broke away from uh, Retro Collect a while back, and he started up the markets originally, and he still does his collectorabilia markets. He does a few other events as well. Good friend of mine, and he does some of the best out there, honestly, and he really knows his stuff. And so those guys have got markets covered, and we never really want to go down that road. For us, it's about the social, and you can't get more social than sitting down for a four-player game of Bomberman or Mario Kart, or standing and chatting, having a pint with your mates. That's what Revival's about. Um, so he says, I think it's all out. It's going to be an amazing event. You're right, Si. Whichever way it goes, I promise you that the next event it will be cracking. I mean, we've had some brilliant events over the years. I've actually got a few things up in the background to kind of remind you of the little things that we got. You'll see just behind me here, I've got the Vectrex. Unfortunately, this one here, this is actually a non-working one. I bought a second Vectrex off one of my own team, and unfortunately, it's been in storage for a while and it doesn't currently work. So I've only got one at the moment, but was hoping to get two running because I hope to get this one set up with the Vec Fever, and that's the one that allows you to run MAME on there, basically the MAME code, and that way I'd set that up with the original arcade vector games. And over on my left shoulder here, you can see I've got my Virtual Boy. I did actually have two Virtual Boys up until a couple of days ago, and this Virtual Boy here is my original one. And I'll pass that over to a guy called Simon Locke, known as Airgan uh, on Facebook, on Twitter, or whatever. He's a really nice guy, really good hobbyist, and he really knows his shit. And he repairs stuff for everybody. He takes his time. He knows what he's doing, and if you can't repair it straight away, he'll have it back because he doesn't like to be beaten. And he's done permafix on that because the way the lenses are inside a Virtual Boy, they're like spinning, rotating lenses that cast an image onto some mirrors, and there's two ribbon cables that connect those to the main board, and over time they deteriorate quite badly. So you have to do like a future-proof fix, whereby you run new solder lines across them, and he did that to both of my Virtual Boys. So two Virtual Boys saved from oblivion, and thankfully my original one here is working cracking again. I've got my hyper fighting game in there, and that is a brilliant game to have. Eventually I will have another mod in that one, and then we're going back to Simon, whereby you can do like a coloured output, a video output from it, and you can actually do that from quite an interesting thing, and I'd love to do it at an event. We could link that with another Virtual Boy playing hyper fighting for two-player head-to-head Street Fighter 2 in 3D, and you can actually cast the video out from both lenses at the same time to a 3D TV, and using stereoscopic glasses, so like red and blue, for example, everybody else in the audience could view like the match in 3D on like a big 3D plasma screen. Pretty cool to do. So that's something we're looking to do in the future. We've always got these little funky projects up our sleeves that nobody else is going to do, but at least you'll get a chance to do it at Revival. um, so sorry, I kind of strayed a bit there, guys. Whenever I go down on one tangent, I go right down the path. But yeah, all around me, I'm looking at things from past Revival events. I've got my posters up on the wall over here. In fact, I'll just flick this round quickly, and hopefully you can see. I've got my PlayStation 2 TV set up here, the KVL whatever it is. Yeah, it's the PS2 incorporated into a TV. I did a review on this a few weeks ago, and I've currently got Gran Turismo 4 up on there, and it looks absolutely brilliant on there. Just down behind here, hiding underneath, is my Super Famicom box. I did a review on that. That's a super rare system, and I'm pleased to say I've actually got another one coming in very soon, so I will have one of these up for sale. And on top of there, you can see a couple of little things there. These are actually birthday presents. I've got there Jago from Killer Instinct statue. That was from Aaron for my birthday. I've got a Zelda music box there, which plays one of the Zelda themes when you turn that. That was off the missus. And we've got the good old VCR on there. Now, I've got this down for a couple of reasons. One of them is I've actually got an Action Max console. And the Action Max console, obviously, you can play a video from there on a CRT screen. It's like a light gun kind of system. Very weird, and I will be hooking that up at some point. Thankfully, our video here still works, so I'm going to do a video showing you exactly how it was, but I will be changing that up to copy everything to DVD soon anyway. But we've actually dug out some old videos, and because we want to do some conversion of home videos, and I've actually found some footage on here from old Max Power shows. Now, I love my cars, and I'm going to be uploading those to the Max Power groups. I've also found some old footage in the arcades, some footage of Ridge Racer full scale, Crazy Taxi High Roller down up in Blackpool, and I'll be uploading that to my channel pretty soon. So I'll be doing various conversion bits from these. But yeah, I've got a couple of the posters up here, which you'll have seen at various revival events. You can see there our little um, table of instructions for people, just telling people not to hog the machines and whatever. Um, this way to the talks. The talks are one of the most popular things we ever have at the events, and you can be sure we'll get some more. We actually had some wicked guests we were talking to, ready for another big event, and we've had to put them on permanent hold. But we had some wicked ideas, and we were looking to get some amazing people in from overseas. So we'll see how that pans out. And then, of course, two of our best events ever right there. 2017, where we brought Dave Perry out to retirement and he came and did his bit up on stage. And Generation X, where Generation X is the one everybody said was probably our best event ever. We had the biggest guest lineup there we've ever had, I think. And we crammed so much in there. That was what nearly killed the Retro Asylum guys. But yeah, we will be back. And that was the biggest arcade we ever had as well at 2018, I think. Obviously, with the help from Arcade Club, who I know a lot of you have been going to during the downtime because they have still been in operation, and long may they continue. Right. Hi, Simon Hadlington. Si Hadlington, of course, guys, one of our event regulars, a very popular guy on the scene. He's always there with some of the most popular drinkers on the crew. He's a bit more of a family man these days, but interesting pop fact: Si Hadlington used to be a game tester, and he was actually appeared on Series 2 of Games Master originally, I believe, beating somebody on, I think it was Olympic Winter Gold or Olympic Summer Gold on the Mega Drive, I think it was. It might have been the Amiga version, actually. But yeah, Si Hadlington appeared on there. So if you jump on YouTube and look at the old episodes of Games Master, you'll see Si there on one of the old episodes. And quite proudly, like I say, he beat the celebrity guest, which I thought was quite funny. We've got good old John Budd. John, we haven't seen you at enough events, mate. I know you do try your best to make the revival events, and I know they're a bit further for you than the Northern events, being one of our Scottish patrons. But at the end of the day, Mike Lee's part of our team, comes down every year for the event, every event. So, you can come down, mate. You're welcome anytime. John's a great laugh, guys. He's a popular character on the scene. Big arcade guy as well. And everybody loves to have a pint and a smoke with John. Steve, good old Steve. How's it going, Steve, mate? Sorry I've not spoken to you recently. Steve, guys, he works for Game, quite a big guy in the Midlands game stores. He's helped us with promoting the event on Twitter and through physical posters and stuff and flyers. the last couple of years. Really nice guy, and he always tries and makes the events. I think one of the few times he actually skips working on a weekend so he can come and enjoy the events of the rest of us. Proper retro gamer at heart. And yeah, you're right, Steve. Nothing beats a few pints at the bar, chatting and gaming at Revival. Totally agree with you there. No problem, Scott. What the hell? Yeah, I know you had a really bad year, mate. I'm glad you're doing a little bit better. And yeah, everybody was there to help everybody else. That community feel at Revival is what everybody comes for. And if you're ever feeling down, you're ever feeling a bit lost, gaming's a good part of escapism anyway. So when you can share that with people who are your mates, who you've met over the years, they may not see you all year. The best thing is that they're in less of a position to judge when they're not seeing you all year. You can go, you can have your escapism in your hobby with your friends who, will be more than happy to share a pint with you anytime and have a good laugh with you. And Scott discovered that back in March. Steve Backley was the person that Cy Hadlington beat at at the Olympic Games game on I think it was a Mega Drive anyway. But yeah, he that was the game on Games Master he played. Um, Dana says Simon Locke is a wizard. He fixed his twin Famicom. Really pleased about that, mate. Twin Fam. Was that yours recently? I saw with the RGB mod. I know he documents a lot of his information. Those who don't know, guys, the Sharp Twin Famicom was officially licensed Sharp product that combined the original Japanese Famicom and the Famicom disk system into one unit. I picked up one just last year because the original units are kind of unreliable, but the Twin Famicoms, it's all in one unit. It's a beautiful looking system, and they're a better system to kind of keep running. So I'm glad that Dana got his fix that way, and Simon Locke knows his stuff. Bit more of an obscure system, but he still managed to work it out. Hey, Alan, how's it going, mate? Glad to see you on there. Alan, guys, Alan will always kick himself because a couple of years he's known for coming to the events. He does some amazing photography. He's helped out at quite a few different events, not just our own, and he does some amazing photography and always gives us the good courtesy of letting us use those images for promotion. He actually came as a trader a couple of years ago. I think it was a 2018 event, and he did me a deal whereby I got a Sharp SF1 Super Famicom TV, which it still needs to be repaired, unfortunately. But he also did me a cracking deal on a Panasonic Cube, GameCube, and anybody who knows that they have shot up in value in the last couple of years. And I got a cracking price off him before the doors even opened. I was like, I want that, claimed it, there we go. And it was unfortunate because everyone was asking after it the whole weekend. But you know what, Alan? I've looked after it, mate, and to this day, it's in. I've got brand new packing boxes behind me. It's all fully boxed up in its original box, in better condition than it was. I fixed the sliding drawer mechanism, tuned it up a little bit, and it works an absolute treat. So it's fully looked after and worth every penny of twice the price I bought it from you from right now. So yeah, he'll always kick himself a little bit over things like that. But that's the kind of nice guy he is, and it's the same for a lot of the guys who come to the events. We do get that's what our one perk as organisers is. We do get to look over what traders bring in early, or we will ask them what they've got coming because sometimes they won't bring their high value items to perhaps a smaller event because they think it may not sell. It's not worth taking backwards and forwards and getting damaged. But quite often, members of our team or some of our big collectors will know that those are the kind of machines that we will take, we will make best use of, and we will look after. So if they tell us they've got it coming, we'll say yes, bring it, we will buy it. And every event now, I'm not a game collector, for example, so you want to go and rifle through the games all day, be my guest. I haven't even looked at them once because I'm a hardware collector, and so I don't feel too guilty about on a Friday when we're setting up Thursday or a Friday. I'll walk round, I'll take a casual glance, and say, well, there's that super rare console I've been after forever. Probably costs a bit more than I can afford, but I'll put some money aside and I'll find the money from somewhere, and I'll usually go home with something every event. And I do try to spend a little bit of money with most of the traders that turn up. The people don't always realise that because I sometimes send other people to go and buy it for me, but I do try and spend a little bit of money with each of my traders so at least they can't say that I'm not helping them out. So um, Yeah, I've picked up some amazing things at events. I'll talk about a few of them pretty soon. I'm trying to think what here actually. I think my first Vectrex came from a connection at an event. Not this one, but that's through one of my team. My Virtual Boy, no, I think my Virtual Boy actually bought off eBay, but I've got some more stuff down here I'm going to talk to you about shortly. About things that I've picked up at events or that I'm working on, or projects and things like that. I'll just go through a few more comments and then we'll switch up the topic a little bit. I'm not showing off, Si, honestly. um, Sullivan said Simon modded the Famicom that fuels our Pixel Hunt podcast. He's a wizard. There you go. So another podcast to check out there, guys. And he modded it. I assume you're talking about an AV mod because the original Famicom is shitty RF only, isn't it? Unless I'm mistaken. So yeah, so I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. And yeah, fully needed on a Famicom. Um, never played a Virtual Boy site. Well, you'll get chance to at the next event. 2018, we had them, 17 and 18, in fact, I think we had them set up, linked up, and we will do that again. Quite a few of our team have got the link cable and a second Virtual Boy, so we will try and link those up and set up either Mario Smash Tennis or Hyper Fighting on 2 player, and you can enjoy it. There are some good, it's got a very tiny library, but it has about a third up to half of those are really, really good games. So we'll try and set those up for you at the next event. Just having a look what we've got here. Simon fixed my Gwangi Cave Jammer board, as well as the PC Engine LT. I wondered whose LT that was. Wasn't Roger Cantor's, was it, by any chance? Because his was fully working a couple of years ago. But yeah, the PC Engine LT, those things cost a bomb now. Andy Johnson says, be interested to see the Action Max. We've actually got some grand plans for the Action Max, Andy. I'm not going to discuss it right now, but yeah, I need to get it out for a review because there's something really cool I want to do with that, and you'll see that at a future event as well. Uh, Awesome, upload that old footage. Yeah, Dave, I will do. I've got some brilliant on these videos here. There's plenty of videos, so you'll get to see a younger me playing some games, which ironically and coincidentally, you never thought you would own. Now, okay, it was me playing them generally as an adult, but just 20 years later now, some of those machines I actually own. I mean, I've now got a Crazy Taxi High Roller, and it's mad to think that the game I was playing back then, I thought you could never play this anywhere but an arcade. I now own that machine and the original. Always fun when you come down. Yes, it is, John. It is. Richard Chad, your events are amazing. I wish you could partner with someone to arrange an event down south one day. Richard, never say never. The south is actually one area we have been looking at doing for a long time. The north, we're not even going to bother with. The north is extremely well covered. You're going to have 3 arcade clubs there at some point. There's also several smaller arcades for regular gaming venues, and most of the major events happen up north. Now, we've always tried to represent for the Midlands, and obviously the Midlands is the best choice because most of us originate from here. And obviously, being central, there's nowhere more accessible in this country than Birmingham because at the end of the day, it links the M5, the M6, and the M1 all in one place. So it doesn't matter which corner of the country you're coming from, you can get straight down to Birmingham and obviously link to the little towns like Walsall, Wolverhampton from that very easily. And that was why we thought it was best to kind of keep it as close to the motorway as we could because it makes it very easy for anybody coming from any corner of the country, and it's equidistant as well. Even if a big pocket of our followers are, for example, up north, at least being in the Midlands, it does mean that those northerners have to travel, but it means that everybody has to travel, but it's a shorter distance for everybody. However, the south isn't very well catered for, and we've been very mindful of it for a while. Some of our team come from down south, and we've been looking to try and get some venues down there. I do know there's one other person who used to do events on the south coast who was looking to resurrect an older event down there, but I think he's finding it hard to get the support he needs for that. May have another talk with him and see what we can arrange in that respect, because I'd like to do something a bit further down south, purely to make it a little bit easier for everybody. I personally like the southwest because I used to holiday down the southwest a lot when I was a kid. We had a caravan down in Exmouth for the entirety of my childhood, and all of my best memories are from down there. and we've been back many times since. You know, we go down there quite regularly, and I'd love to do as far down as that, but it's a little bit far for a lot of people to come. But we have been looking at some events that kind of sit midway between the southwest and the south, central south, and at least then we can capture some people from London and some people from the southwest at the same time, and still get our Midlands crowd and some of the northerners as well. So we're looking at options there. So never say never. If anybody wants to fire any suggestions to us of venues, maybe head us up on a little bit of research. Bear in mind, we can't do the massive convention centres. We don't have that kind of funding. But if you know of suitable large venues with good access that ticks all our boxes, shoot me a message and I'll see what we can do. Let's have a look. Lance, there's a lot of good comments here, guys. Thank you very much for your comments. We don't do it for the money, but the praise is always welcome, and we do get a lot of good feedback on the events anyway. But it's always nice to hear when people have something nice to say. And Lance says your shows are awesome. Looking forward to it coming back. Yes, we will be back, Lance, without a doubt. Alex says can't wait till it starts up again. The last one was great. Thank you very much for that, Alex. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I don't know if it was your first or your 10th, but whether it's your first or your 10th, there's always something new to see. The best part about it is seeing people you've seen before, which is a nice thing. But there's always, even though, so one of the cliche things we look at is that there's nothing. People say there's nothing new in retro, but its very definition, it's already happened. It already exists. You can only show people an old console so many times. Well, I say bullshit because we find, new games being made for old systems. There's retro attempts being made on new consoles. We've got retro remasters on new consoles. We've got projects like the Spectrum Next, which I'll go into shortly. And those kind of things just show that retro isn't dead. There's still things happening in retro, and we always try to cover that. We've got no interest in new consoles, right? We've all got a PS4 or Xbox at home, right? But the truth is, our heart lies in our old gaming. Most of the games on my PS4 happen to be old games, remasters and things like that. And my house is filled with all these old consoles and stuff. And there's always something new I'm discovering. Not just that, but hard. Oh, excuse me, guys. Hardware mods and things like that. I ain't got the COVID, don't worry. I'm just. I think it's got a bit of a dry mouth. I've got a little bit of a cold creeping up, but I think that's about it. I had my flu jab the other day. That's something I wasn't looking forward to, but I'm thinking, hey, COVID in the air, might as well take an extra precaution this year and at least kick off one more cold thing to worry about. So I had my flu jab, but I think I'm developing a little bit of flu symptoms from it. So just having a look at other comments here, guys, and then I'll move on to something else and come back to your comments. Fire Truck, a good game to start an argument. Yeah, some of the arcades we have at the events, guys. I mean, I don't know what all your favourite arcade games are, but we do try and mix those up as well. I mean, some people say, oh, well, you haven't got Outrun Deluxe there. And I'm like, listen, we don't have those in our stock. The logistics of managing those is a nightmare. And at the end of the day, you can still go and enjoy those at places like Arcade Club. And Arcade Club have supported us for many years now. And Andy's a good friend of ours. And, he's been helping us out with the majority of arcade machines we've had for the last couple of years. But about 50% of theirs, the other 50%, come from private collectors. Now, that's not something you see at most events because they all rely on one person. We try and get the private collectors involved. It's a bit more of a challenge to organise logistically, but it means that you see machines you don't always see at events. People will have projects, restorations in progress all the time. I myself, I own a total of 30 arcade machines. Only about a third of those are working at any one time, unfortunately. And that third at the moment lives permanently up in Barnsley. There's an arcade up there called Retrodome, which is second only to Arcade Club in terms of size, scope, and quality of machines that they've got. If you haven't been, I highly recommend you go and check them out because we were due to go and do a big review video and group visit there with some of my clan, if you know what I mean. Right before lockdown happened, we did our first one to play Bideford in January, and we were due to go to Barnsley next on our stop tour, and because they've got quite a few of my arcade machines, they permanently live there. They keep them running and service them for me. Because anybody who owns arcade machines will tell you that it's much better to keep an arcade machine running than it is to fix it and leave it standing. You know, arcade machines are much better left running and kept in working order. And so, you know, they're looking after my arcade machines. I've got another 20 I've got to fix yet. Half of those will probably end up at Barnsley as well. But it means that I'm constantly, you know, rotating the stock that I've got in. I haven't got many of the super classics, but I've got games that really interest me, and I'm doing dedicated conversions on, you know, on standard jammer cabinets. I don't want a generic jammer cabinet anymore. I'd rather make a generic jammer cabinet into a dedicated something, you know, insert game here. That's what I do. That's just my personal interest. But we've got guys like there, like, you know, Alex, Nintendo Arcade, Roger Cantor, Martin Laws. Who else have we got? We've got we've got Dave. We've got Ian. Oh, there's loads of the guys. All members of UK VAC, and they've always got new projects on the go, and they've always got new machines they want to show off, and they say we'll bring that next time, and it keeps the mix fresh. Now we may not have, you know, the Power Five every time. We might not always have a Defender, a Robotron, an Outrun, and, you know, a Pac-Man or whatever. But we try to keep it fresh. Most of those games people have played before, and yes, people want to go back and play them again. But there's only so many times you can bring the same machines and not get bored. We try and mix it up, so at least you're seeing something fresh. And if you are an arcade guy, then you definitely want to see some of those machines you haven't seen before in their best light. And being in the hands of collectors, you know they've been looked after and given extra lick of polish. Just looking at the other chats. Hi Brian, thanks for joining us, mate. Sorry it's a little bit later than I said it would be, but thanks for joining us on there. How's it going, Jason? Nice to see you on there. Um, and yeah, see, I got people here suggesting venues and stuff. I will come back to all these guys at some point, but yeah, I've looked at doing it at some of the holiday venues, and I've been in talks with a couple of them over the years, but it was just practicality reasons before. Now we've done a lot of major events at convention halls. It, you have to understand the way the event world works. They need certainties, and we've now got a proven track record that we can bring in a crowd in. Once we've got that, that then gives us leverage to go and approach new venues and say, listen, we want to come and do something here. Can you cut us a deal? If we can prove we've already brought people to events before, they're far more likely to give us discounts and give us flexibility on the facilities and things like that. So yeah, we've had to spend a few years building our rapport, building our portfolio up, if you know what I mean. And now we've got that. We can kind of box with the big boys, you know what I mean? We just haven't got their kind of budgets. So now we're in a better position to do so. It sounds a bit bad, but especially post COVID, um, I think remaining venues will be vying for trade, and whereas some places are putting their prices through the roof to try and make it up that way, they're gonna need the bookings at the end of the day, and because, you know, public enthusiasm and public faith will be low, we can potentially go and approach venues and say, listen, you know, we can't afford to give you that much up front, but people are going to be dying to come. They're going to spend money on beer, hotel, food, whatever. So we've now got a lot more leverage and a lot more choice of where we can go from here. We wanted to kind of take 2020 out as a year, and that's sort of what we did with the two events. In the end, just a weird coincidence. Trust me, I didn't go to Wuhan myself and bring back COVID-19 just to have a year off. At the end of the day, this was just a freak of nature, and as it happened, everybody was forced to stand back and take a break. And to be honest, I'm glad it happened, because I personally felt that events were starting to become saturated. There were too many events, too many in the calendar, too many new people just having to go. They'd see what we would do, and we had a lot of people kind of, it sounds really bad because we weren't the first to do it either, but a lot of people have seen what we do as enthusiasts and thought, we'll have a go at that. And they're doing it purely for the money. And they're realising after one event how hard it is, and you never see them again. Even if they do host a decent event, you never see them again because they haven't got the time to commit to it like we have. We are in an advantageous position to do that. And the only reason we keep going is because there's no expectation of a payday. You know what I mean? So anybody out there who is thinking of jumping on the back of this, please don't, because it's insulting, when there's so much effort going into this one. If you want to become a part of what we're doing, do it, but don't do it thinking you can make money. Don't go and do your own thinking you're going to make a buck. Don't come to us thinking you're going to get a massive payday. It's a hobbyist thing. It's a convention. It's hobbyists coming together and doing what they love, and you've got to treat it that way. You've got to respect the people. You've got to respect the hobby, and you've got to respect the efforts that some people like us put in. So make sure, if you do come, you come with open arms. We will welcome you in, and we will take on anybody who wants to join us, as long as you're willing to be reliable, put some graft in like we all do. And if you've got something to bring to the table, then all the better. You know what I mean? You don't have to have, but each of and every member of our team tends to bring something. The collection, I could basically furnish an entire event just with what I own, but I don't. The only thing I tend to put out of my own these days will be my arcade machines, because most of the team own some fantastic stuff, some of them in much better condition than mine, and we spread the load that way, you see. So if I lost any one member of my team, we could take up the slack, but it means everybody gets to have their input, if you know what I mean. And even if you just come along and bring one console, it helps. So come along with open arms, and we'll take anybody to bring them on board as part of the team. You'll probably get a pint and a meal out of it. So. Um, Right, so there's a lot more comments here, guys. I'll probably, in fact, this is a social thing. There's a lot of things I wanted to do here because I didn't know how many people would be chatting. This is a social event, so let's just have a good old fucking chinwag, eh? Yeah, UK VAT, UK VAT. A lot of votes for UK VAT. UK VAT, guys, is one of those places that, if you're into your arcades. I mean, Jammer Plus fell by the wayside many years ago, and I'll be honest, I'm totally happy about that, because I got shown a massive level of disrespect by Jammer Plus back in the day, because I used to build arcade machines, and that's seen as like a big insult or a big no-no to hardcore collectors and to people who tried it before and failed. And I wasn't doing it. We were custom cabinet builders. That was always our thing. But I got shown a massive level of disrespect by them. I got banned from their forums. I wasn't allowed to ask for help there when we're doing events. So to be honest, fuck that forum, and I'm glad it's gone. UK VAC was always where the hardcore collectors were, and most of the people who were members of both. There was always an us and them thing with UK VAC and Jammer Plus. UK VAC was always the true hardcore collectors, and still there now. The people who run it, the people who operate there, and all the support that we gather for our arcades, for our events, come from real collectors, not just one person, not someone making a profit. It all just comes from genuine collectors. You want to know anything about anything with arcades, go there. You want the real price of arcade machines, go there. Just recently, the price of arcade machines has become ridiculous. Some of the original classics have become a bit more rare, and so the price of those has crept up. But our souls have started to take that to mean that you can just pick up any old arcade machine and flip it for £2 grand. Doesn't work like that. Much of my collection I picked up okay before we were really collecting, and I paid £100 or £200 for some of my arcade machines. Fair enough, a lot of them needed work, but I don't think I've ever really paid more than £500 for an arcade machine. And collectors are really the same ilk. They will generally like to pay much lower, unless they're getting a full restoration. Then they will pay £1 grand, 1,500 quid. If it's a rare machine, they'll pay upwards of that. But most arcade machines people will buy on the cheap, and then they will do it themselves. That's just the way it works. It's just like it's the difference between a car dealership and a car modifier, right? If you modify your cars, you would go and buy something cheap privately, do it up yourself, make it nice. If you wanted just a nice car to show off, you go to a dealership and buy a brand new one. It's the same with arcade machines, and generally people like to restore them because there aren't many of them left. Nobody's making new CRTs. You've got to keep these things kicking and running, and so the hardcore collectors are the ones you really need to pay attention to. And those are the guys who are, they're keeping it real. They're buying them cheap. They're restoring them, and they're the ones who bring them to the events and letting everybody enjoy them. We've had some really rare machines at our events. And if you're interested in getting one, speak to one of the guys. Any of the guys will talk to you about arcades all day. Right. A couple of suggestions here on places. Yeah, I'll look into all of these guys. I won't mention them because people do have a habit of unfortunately trying to snipe venues from under us, so I won't mention them. But yeah, there's some good suggestions. Locations, especially, guys. Some of these I've actually looked at already. So yeah, thank you for backing up what we thought about. Um, Rich Boat, yeah, how's it going, Rich? Rich is somebody, just talking about people who contribute occasionally, guys. Rich Spowett and his lovely wife, they always come to our events, and they do occasionally, they will bring, that they've got an Atari Falcon, which is a rare system that we don't have. They generally will bring that and one or two other consoles to help fill some spaces we ask for. And they just come, they enjoy the event, they will turn up, they'll help set a few things up, and we've welcomed those in from the start. They're not always part of the team, but they are most of the time, and really nice guys. But Rich says on here, guys, hope you didn't lose too much money when you had to cancel Revival 2020. No, not a penny, to be honest, Rich, because the way we'd done the deal for this year, it meant that we didn't have to pay nothing up front. We'd also pre-booked everything, and a lot of it came to on the strength of the first event. So the reason we booked the same venue for the two events is because, like I say, it's a way of looking to keep costs down. If we had a first good event, the second event would be a little bit cheaper. We were going to be charging for the second event, but this is why very early on we made the decision not to put the tickets on sale immediately. We were going to put them on sale. The ticket site was ready to be launched the day after Revival Part 1. I cancelled that because I was in hospital, well, just come out of hospital, and because I knew I had to wait to get advice on what was going on with lockdown. But yeah, we were ready to go back, but because we didn't put any tickets on sale, there were no costs involved. There was no deposit that needed to be paid because they had such a good March event. And thankfully, I think one or two people had kind of, because they were so excited, had booked a hotel, but thankfully they got to cancel those and get their money back. So we didn't put anybody out by giving people like false hopes. They were just regulars who knew to get in early. That was all it was. But yeah, we didn't lose anything on it. We didn't have to pay anything out to anybody. Like I say, we're in the handy position now that, especially doing an event of that size, we knew there was no financial risk, and we didn't need that kind of risk this year anyway. Isn't it a good thing, really, that we hadn't arranged a big event? Because if we had, we would have had to have put down about 50% of the event has to be paid for pretty much months before the event takes place. Now, our main events cost anything up to 16, 18, 20,000 pound all in all. Now, that kind of money we couldn't have afforded to have lost. We'd have had tickets on sale that we probably wouldn't have been able to afford to refund because we've had to use that ticket money to pay for the event. Traders wouldn't have got a refund, so we would have been offering gratis spaces at future events, impacting future events. So I'm actually really glad we didn't choose to do a big event this year because it could have potentially buried our attempts. And I just knew something told me deep down. I read the signs carefully, and something told me to box clever and back off a little bit this year. Nobody could predict this was coming, but I think it was a wise choice all in all to split and do the two events instead. Remind people of where we started and what they're really interested in, and also make people not take it for granted. Now, with us not hosting an event at all now, it made March even more significant, and it made people realise you can't always just say we'll wait for the next event because the next event might not happen. When people start, it's like the the arcades of old. Arcades closed because people stopped going, and because they took for granted they would always be there. And what happened? They all disappeared. Now, with the events, yes, there's a big resurrection of, the whole retro hobby and, old gaming and that, but it won't last forever, and it shifts with each demographic, with each generation. We're 10 years into doing events pretty much now. You're moving into a whole new generation, and the thing is like the pockets of people you're aiming at will always shrink, and you've got to monitor that. And so I knew this year was the year to ease back and do the two smaller events and remind people of what they really like, and remind people not to take the big events for granted because they won't always be there. I've just been doing my videos from back in the day. I love my cars, and I went to Max Power Live. They did Max Power Live at the NEC, some of the biggest shows ever held there. They pretty much had the entire NEC taken up by Max Power Live, right? They took up like 5 of the major halls, all of the outside areas, most of the parking lots, and I went to both of them, but it only lasted 2 years. They never did another one. In fact, they made a smaller one the year after that one, but then after that, the scene changed and it moved on. And I'm glad that I went to those, and I didn't take for granted that they were there at the time. So they don't do that. Games Master Live, back in the day, there were no gaming conventions you could go to as a gamer. Games Master Live happened once and once only in 1992, and I'm glad to say I was there. I went to it, and until we started doing retro gaming events, there were no such thing as public gaming events that interested me. Yes, there was like Euro Gamer and got esports and things now. But even things like the Gadget Show, I used to go to the Gadget Show live, but it became stale because you couldn't actually interact with a lot there. There was a lot of stores selling stuff, but you couldn't actually interact with that much there. And the new games they had on show, they weren't that new. You know what I mean? It was a little bit lacking, if you know what I mean. And so we stopped going to that as well. And but I'm glad that I went to these things. But it meant that like gaming events, go to every single one that you can. Don't just say, "Oh, I can't be arsed this weekend," or "Oh, it might not be that big." It could be the last. And as we proved in March, it was the fucking last. It was the last match. I think one was held the following weekend against the advice that was going at the time. But ours was the last major one to take place before everything was upended and the government said no more. And I'm really pleased that ours wasn't affected by limited restrictions, people backing out because of getting COVID, or that it wasn't of such a size that we may have risked a massive spread. So when we do come back, I hope that people go to all of them. Don't discount the smaller ones. Don't discount certain companies. Travel, make a weekend of it. When we go to events, that's what we do. We will travel. The world's a smaller place these days, right? You can get to all corners of this country with just a couple of hours drive. Okay, not everybody drives. You know people who do. You got friends who will pick you up and do it. You're making a weekend of it. Jump on a train, book a beer, the Premier Inn. It's 50 quid a night. I know not everyone's got money to burn, but you plan ahead. You look at what the calendar's got hold for the year, and you book your shit well in advance when it's cheaper. You don't leave it till the last minute. And like I know, especially with our events, when it comes to the tickets, the earlier you buy, the more we can do, which is why we do it. But the earlier you buy, we will generally give cut price tickets. We'll do deals where you get freebies and things like that. Book early, support the event holders, you know what I mean? Support the traders, and that way, you'll get a better event, you'll get a better deal for getting in early, and you'll enjoy yourself more when you get there because you'll have had a big build up when you get to it. So support every event, and I don't just mean ours, I mean all of them. John says, yeah, it's a weekend on the Raz for me. Mate, it's a weekend on the Raz for everybody. I mean, even I burn out so bad, I get dehydrated just talking for any length of time. I've been talking for over an hour now, and I'm fucking dry here. I'm gonna have to stop for a drink in a minute. But yeah, it's like it's all about the social. And during the event, everyone's like, "Can I buy you a pint?" And "Can I get you this?" And I'm like, "Okay, then fair enough." And before I know it, I've put 5 or 6 pints back, and I'm still dehydrated. I'll net down a couple of liters of Coke after that, and it's still pissing out of me. The sweat's leaking out of my head, and by the end of it, I've lost my voice. I can't talk. I can't think anymore. And physically, as people have seen the last 2, 3 years, uh, 2018, I was majorly incapacitated. I went over on the stairs on my ankle, and my leg was absolutely fucked. And like last year, I mean, obviously early this year, I had a medical issue, which meant I couldn't turn up. 2019, I was really struggling by the end of the weekend, even before problems in my back. My health is catching up with me, unfortunately. My disability, and because of my age, it's now starting to catch up with me, so I need more help now. What doesn't help is that during lockdown, it's probably evident from the videos, I have actually put on a fair bit of weight, and I balance pretty well, thankfully. It doesn't all just go my belly, but it's the fact that, like, that extra weight when you've got bad limbs and problems with your knees and ankles doesn't help. So it's like just everything's come with age. I've got to go on a hardcore diet, but I'm at the point in the age now where my joints and my muscles will continue to get worse in terms of problems. So I've got to start slowing down. I had a stroke 13 years ago now. And it was a miracle I was able to even get back walking. And the fact that I managed to get 13 more years of decent, passable mobility out of it, I'm okay with that. I've made my peace with it by now. But I've got I've been able to hide for a long time how bad the disability was, but now I've got to the point where age is catching up with me, and I've now got a body that's 10 years older than I actually am. So I'm starting to get the aches and the pains and the problems that you'd normally get when you're at the end of your 40s, not at the start of your 40s. And so I'm trying to kind of ease back, and I'm trying to take my hands off the reins a little bit. But it's the same for most of our crew. None of us are getting any younger. People are sharing photos now on Facebook of when they started meeting people for the earliest events in like the mid to late 2000s, and they're sharing photos now, and some of them are unrecognisable. You know what I mean? It's mad, and it's crazy because some of those guys I know now, quite a bit older than me. When I first met them, they were younger than I am now. And you can see how people age, and I'm not saying it ages people or people have aged badly, but this is like a big part of my life. Like I didn't I loved my games all through my childhood. I was obsessed as a child. And it was always a joke in my family that I was way too into my computer games, more than anybody else I knew. In the 80s, it seemed like everybody was into them, but they weren't. Only select people were, and the ones who were loved them. And I was one of those kids. I always wanted to grow up and be a programmer, but I could never get my head into coding. Design, fine, no problem. I knew what made a game tick. I knew what made a game good, and I eventually took my hand to that. As people know, with designing my own game. But as far as actual coding goes, I was never much cop. I actually went, and at one point, I was training to be a personal trainer, and I'm glad I didn't go down that path eventually because had I had the stroke, which happened as a freak, I've got a weird blood condition. If I'd have gone down that career path, I'd have lost my career when I had the stroke. What actually happened around that time was I was getting sick of my job as it was, working a government job. It sucked. I hated it. So I started the arcade building on the side, and then it naturally evolved into doing the gaming events and things like that. And it's kind of rolled on from there. And what I've done is every couple of years I've stood back and reassessed what I do to make sure I can manage what I'm doing. I couldn't do a standard 9 to 5 like most people, and so I occupy my time with projects instead. And so, little projects that I do now, I do fixing up my consoles, I've been doing writing. In fact, I want to just quickly mention that. For those who don't know, I mean, during this time when I'd usually be organising events, what I've been doing mainly is me and Chris Wilkins have been collaborating a lot more yet again. I mean, we spent a lot of time away from each other. He went off to do his books, I carried on with the events. But he's made a really good go of the books, and he's now doing that pretty much full time. And as you may have seen from announcements the other day, they're now 99% done on completely obtaining the full rights for Crash and Zap back from Future Publishing. So they will take those on. And with Roger Keane unfortunately falling very ill, Chris will be taking the lead on any future publications. Now, I know Chris is working on a quarterly. They'll be doing, instead of just the annuals, they'll be doing Crash and Zap again as a quarterly publication. I will actually be the Spectrum Next writer for that publication. I've been writing for Fusion magazine now for best part of what 18 months, I think. I think the first issue was something like summer last year, and I wrote for issue one, and I've actually got issue one right here. This is issue one of Fusion. I've got these in digital form, and I do the arcade features in every issue, and I tend to be on the back pages. And I did my first piece was on my favourite ever arcade game, Killer Instinct, right there. And you can still order these on back order. Some of these older issues, so ask Chris about those. But Fusion's doing really well. and it's gone from being a bi-monthly magazine to a monthly magazine now. So I write for that every month. I don't just do the arcade features. I mean, got 720 degrees there. This is a later issue. This has got um, a 3-page review that actually goes onto another page there. So I've been doing the arcade reviews in those publications, but I've also contributed to the specials. I've done features on rare consoles, and as of 2 months ago, I'm now the proofreader for 99% of the publications that are out because I spotted quite a need of proofreading needed doing. So I've been making a lot of corrections to the formatting and the spelling and grammar. So yeah, I've been doing a lot more with Chris on those, and I've put some suggestions forward for new publications and new books that he wants to be doing, and I'll be doing the Spectrum Next features in the Crash quarterlies as they come out. So look forward to that coming soon. So that's what I've been up to for the majority of this year. I know a lot of people have been doing up their houses and things like that, but with the way my health was, I had a bad March because of that kidney infection. That put me out, to be honest, for most of spring. I did a few things back home, but I've really struggled physically this year. But the good news is, it meant that, like I say, I was able to put my time into doing those publications. I hope some of you out there do read Fusion, by the way. I think quite a few of you have done that. I know some of you out there are subscribers to it. It's a really good magazine. It's gone beyond fanzine now because there's a lot of input from quite good names in there. Dave Perry does a feature in there every month. Some known YouTubers do pieces in there. Some known bloggers and podcasters do things in there, and they're all knowledgeable people. In fact, probably more knowledge than magazine writers back in the day would have had. And thankfully, there's certain people who will never contribute to these magazines anymore, and that makes them 100% better straight away. So yeah, so check those out if you haven't already. But yeah, I've been working on loads of side projects. I mean, I'd already spoken about doing repairs to some of my consoles that I need to pass to the professionals to do, but I've been doing little things myself as well. I've just done my own Saturn. I've modded that with a mode interface, which is it's like the flash solution for it. There was already a device for it called the Ria and the Phoebe, but it was made by a guy who didn't produce them in large enough numbers. I mean, here I've got my Model 1 Saturn. I've modded my Model 2 with the mode, which is the new optical drive emulator. But my Model 1 Saturn was knackered, and thankfully I passed that to Simon Locke. He's now fixed that. That's ready to go. This is for sale, by the way. So if anybody is looking, there's a UK model Saturn here, Model 1, first revision, up for sale as a full set for 90 quid, or best offer. So, that was something I had to get sorted out. I did some modifications to my Super Famicom box. I've done some trades and I've been picking up some cool things. I mentioned my other Virtual Boy had actually gone, and that's because I picked up a system I haven't ever had. One system I've never owned because the right one hasn't come up at the right price. And so I did a deal with Nick at Vintage Gamer. I'm going to give a shout out here because Nick at Vintage Gamer, one of the best gaming shops in the country, I'm going to say now. And he's been supporting us at Revival from the beginning. He's got one of the best shops. He does so many great deals, and he turns up to every event. He doesn't introduce himself fully. He doesn't put loads of signage on his store. But everyone always says that bloke there, the guy in the cap, the small guy in the green. I says like, yeah, it's Nick, Vintage Gamer. Oh, he did me a great deal. I traded in my old console, and he gave me all this instead. Nick is the king of deals, right? And he's one of the few traders I deal with regularly because quite often he'll ring me and say, I've got this arcade, can you give me some advice? Oh, this rare system's coming, I don't know if it'll sell in the shop, are you interested? And, he does some wicked deals for me, and thankfully, he came up with a good deal for me. And so what I've done is I've traded him my other Virtual Boy now, and I swapped him. He had this kicking about in one of his stores, and it's one I've never owned. A lot of you will recognise it. It's the Amiga CD32. Now, I did actually get one of these. I picked up. I can't remember where it come from, but I picked it up anyway. But it was completely knackered. I thought it just needed a recap, but it was completely buggered. But in the end, I ended up selling it on for parts, and I thought I'll get one at another point, but the price of these has gone through the roof. So I looked around, and one came in at Nick's shop, then another one came in, and I says, Nick, do you want to do a deal? And he did do a deal for me, so I basically pretty much did a straight swap. He got a Virtual Boy, and I got an Amiga CD32. And rather handily, I hate the original CD32 controller, but he had one of these, the Competition Pros. Now, I wasn't a big fan of these controllers for other consoles back in the day, but if you've ever used an Amiga CD32 controller that sucks, you'll know that they're not the best standard controller in the world. And these are actually a lot better. So it's a lot more playing like a Mega Drive than it is playing a CD32 with this pad. And it's a nice little pad. And with the pads for these coming in at up to 50 quid sometimes, I'm really glad it came with that. So I've got that to come. But I won't actually be breaking that one out and doing a video on that until I've done my obligatory modification. You can get a full flash solution for this. It plugs into the expansion port on the back there. It's called the TF330, and I'll be ordering one very soon, preloaded with games that load off compact flash card, and that will be how I run my CD32. So another new console for the collection, another new project to work on. It's something I've not touched on before. It's a system I've very, very rarely played, and so I'm looking forward to doing that. But there's other systems that I've picked up and I've not yet done a video on. I really want to. Now, another one that I bought here, I'm going to show you a couple of things here, guys. Another one I picked up, I actually got for an absolute bargain price off Don. So again, somebody I met through the show, now through the shows. Don is the guy who does our VR stuff. He sold me a Turbo Express. This little beauty here. Now, not everyone's had experience with these, but you may have famously seen one in Enemy of the State, starring Will Smith. This is the console that they hide the digital tape inside, and it features quite prominently in some of the scenes. It's basically the portable PC Engine. It uses the exact same hue cards that the actual home console did. The PC Engine, of course, not very popular in the UK back in the day, and one of the most underrated systems ever. It was kind of the third wheel to the SNES and the Mega Drive, and that's why nobody paid it any mind. Well, we got the Turbo Express version of it, which was the Western version of it. But basically, the PC Engine was a better version. It was smaller, it was more compact, and I'd say it's more collectible, really. But this is the portable version, and back in the day, this was outstanding. It's got a wicked D-pad, really nice, comfortable D-pad, well-responsive buttons. You've got your auto fires built into it. It's got volume control, it's got a speaker control there, and you can actually do a video out mod on this as well if you want to. But like I say, the beauty was you could use the same hue cards that the console used, and so if you owned an original home console, you could own this as well, use exactly the same games between the two. It was a bit of a battery chomper, uses six AA batteries, and it goes through those pretty quick, but this was basically the equivalent of a 16-bit handheld. I know the PC Engine isn't a true 16-bit console. I think it's an 8-bit console with a few tricks, but the games are the equivalent of, like, most of the 16 bits, and it was full color screen and everything. But I bought this off Don, and unfortunately the backlight was a bit knackered, and it kept losing the picture. I did get it for a bargain price, so I didn't complain. But I passed it off again to Simon Locke, and he worked his magic, and this little beauty now works a treat. And as you can see in the back, I've actually got a Turbo EverDrive in the back of there, so this has got all the games all fully loaded into it. We'll just fire this up, and I'll fire up whatever the last game was that I had up on there. Terra Cresta, to give some volume. And you can see it's because most of these now you have to change the screen because the screens generally go pretty quick. This old LCD technology, but it's still got a really even backlight on it, which is quite good. No dead pixels. That's very unusual for one of these. So I said, rather than change it for one of the modern ones, even though they may look better, this is so good. I just wanted to keep it running as an original, and the sound's nice and loud on there. Show a little bit of the game running there. Got to show some gameplay on this video, haven't I? Fucking cracking game, man. I love Terra Cresta. Obviously, I own the Terra Cresta arcade game, and I love Terra Cresta too. Very, very hard game though, and that is a fantastic machine. And this is a really good condition one now. These are now going for silly money. Again, it's one of those things you really should have hung on to if you bought it back in the day, because you're looking about, I think, 300 plus for one of these now. For a good working one that's had the work done inside that needs to be done, like the recapping and everything, you're looking at 450 for one of these. The PC Engine GT, which is basically exactly the same console but got the Japanese branding on, you'll be paying even more purely because it's the rarer model than this. But yeah, this is fantastic. Completely unmarked as well, really good condition, and I'm really happy I got that fixed. Most of the time I'll be running that off a power supply, admittedly, but I'll be doing a video on that soon, and I may do a video out mod on it at some point. So I'll probably be going back to Simon Lock at some point to have that done to it. Because one thing we do want to bring back at the events, and I was talking to somebody about this recently, we haven't had the handhelds out for quite a while. Now there's a lot of consoles out there, a lot of handheld consoles that have had a lot of mods over the last couple of years. A lot of things done that you may not have seen or weren't possible until we had new technology to do it. And people really wanted, people really want to play the handhelds, but they're not the most practical thing to put out at events, because obviously when you've got your events, you've got problems with, you've got to keep things tethered. I mean, nobody generally steals or walks away, but it's quite easy to put things down where they shouldn't be, or taken and dropped on a floor or something like that. So you need a reliable way to put them somewhere, and because it's not easy to keep your eye on it, we haven't done it for a couple of events. Now you could put them out with emulators, which we kind of do, because there's always some kind of emulation device out there where you can play those games, but you want to try and play the real thing. Now my collection wasn't the best, but I have slowly been improving it and not talking about it for quite a while. So when we got upcoming events, we'll be looking at a few new things. So I mean, I've got here my Game Boy Advance SP, one of the ones that I've got. That's obviously been sorted out, so you don't have to worry about games. I've got the Easy Flash Omega cart in there. That is basically, there is no Game Boy Advance EverDrive from Crix, but this is cheaper and way better because it also supports NES, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy emulators. It even does Mega Drive, Master System and all that. I don't really want to use them, but having like Game Boy Color and normal Game Boy on here as well as Game Boy Advance is really good for some of the things I want to do. I've also got NES on there, so quite handy to have all in one cartridge. But the reason that's important, and I'm just digging through my rubbish here, so bear with me, is because, like I say, we want to put out some more flashy, more appealing things that you may not have seen before at other events, setups that you wouldn't have witnessed or you wouldn't be able to do yourself without some major investment. And so we've been picking up a few bits to allow us to do that. And you've seen it before. I mean, the last event we had 2 Mega Drives network linked for zero tolerance. Now, we'd never even tried that before. I didn't even know you could network link 2 Mega Drives, but apparently it was a real thing, and you can modify your own cable to do it. And Mike off our team actually did it in a few days before the event, and we had linked up zero tolerance set up on the Mega Drive, which was quite cool, like a head-to-head shooter. So that was something different to see. We've had the 10-player Bomberman out. We've had the 8 GameCubes linked. We've had Amigas linked with the ST for cross-player Stunt Racer or Lotus Turbo Challenge. We've got a whole new bunch of things we're going to set up for the next event that we really, really want to put out, and we haven't had a chance to do it. And we've kind of laid all the groundwork for it, and we've got a new section we're going to be doing, and it'll be at the next event. It's called Freak Show. Just be called Welcome to the Freak Show, and in that we'll be doing all kinds of weird things. We plan to be linking 3 different computers that aren't supposed to be linked to play a certain game. We'll be doing the craziest Game Boy combination ever, because I've now got Spice Orange GameCube. with the Game Boy player, as you can see there, and you can actually system link these. And what we'll be doing is we'll be linking one of these to a Game Boy Advance SP, a Game Boy Advance, and the Game Boy adapter for the SNES. So you'll actually have two different handhelds, a GameCube and a SNES, all system linked, playing the same game for a linked game. And we'll be doing all kinds of freak show things like that. We'll be running some clone consoles, doing some weird things, some hacked ROMs, some really interesting stuff, you know, some real trick things you won't have seen before. I'll also be putting out some new systems that I've been working on, doing some other things. I was recently delving into the world of Japanese imports and managed to pick up myself up a beautiful Sega Mark III, which I've been fixing up and working on. I'll also be making a custom flash cart for this because one doesn't actually exist for it. What else have I got in here? So I've got a little box of tricks down here of all the projects I've been working on recently. I've got the Insurrection. This is the Carby HDMI adapter for the GameCube, and it's like a plug and play HDMI adapter, and it works brilliantly. You can output in full HDMI, various different displays. You can emulate scan lines and everything with it. Such a cool thing to have. What else have I got? Oh, I've got a system down here I haven't even looked at yet. It's a very strange, very rare. It's like a Pong console. It's a Japanese only Pong console, but it outputs full RGB signal, which is very rare for the time. And it even brags about it on the box. And it's actually a cartridge-based system. It's one I've never even heard of, never come across. And you know, you've got like Space Invaders type games, football games, golf games. It has got some arcade ports in there. Seeing what else in here. Got any Astro Wars, and I didn't even. I know there's obviously the tabletop grandstand game Astro Wars, but I've got that in there ready to cover in a video. I know there's a couple of other things we're looking at. I've even picked up one of these recently. You should kind of recognise what this is if you know your handhelds. And I'll be doing something rather trick with this as well as part of our freak show. So yeah, there's going to be some wicked things we're going to be doing in the new one. I've got a Dreamcast in there lined up for something kind of freaky as well. So look forward to that at the next event. So all the time, you see, when I'm doing my little projects at home, there's a lot of projects I do, they're not just for me. I do them for you guys out there. Like I'll think, oh well, I think people will be interested to see that. Nobody's seen that before. Let's try this, and before you know it, I'm doing all kinds of weird and wacky modifications and freak show things, and I'll be doing a few more ready for the next revival. So yeah, just a few things there to look forward to, and an insight into the kind of bullshit I've been up to for the last few months. And yeah, I mean, there's some really cool things we could still do. There's always something new to be seen and new to be done at a revival event. I'm just going to put the lid on this, guys, and then I'm going to go over the comments because I know you've been commenting for loads during the time I've been doing this. Let me just quickly put some of this gear back in the box here, and then I will carry on with my chat, and we'll see what you've got to say because I think there's some interesting comments to address. So there's so much stuff kicking around on this table, it's unreal. So now I'm knocking my camera while I'm doing this. So let's pop these in here out the way, make them safe. And so I've got brand new power adapters, brand new AV cables for various things. I haven't even been able to use yet. I'm a bit of a procrastinator, I'll be honest, and I quite often will put off things. I know I've still got work to be done on various things. Obviously, I've got work to be done on my own game. I'm fully aware of that for the Spectrum Next. I've got work to be done on. I've got work to be done on my own unit where I store all my gear. I've always got something going on. But to be honest, that's just who I am. It's what I like to do. It's who I like to be. And I'm gonna be doing a lot more projects. I'll be starting new ones between now and the next revival that I haven't even talked about yet. I think it's a bloke thing. Blokes just tend to just find random crap to occupy the time. I'm just one of them people who likes to, I don't know. I always like to keep my mind busy. I feel like I'm accomplishing something when I'm doing my daft little modifications and pissing about with stuff. So it's just what I like to do. It makes me feel a bit less useless. Oh, there we go. Right, I'm gonna have a quick swig of some pop because I've been talking for an hour and a half and I'm dry as a bone. And then I'm gonna read some of your chats here and see what you guys have been saying. So right, I'm just looking there. Right, one sec. Nice sugary pop up swig of Pepsi. Not really drinking all that much fizzy pop these days, but really needs must. Right. So looking at some of your comments, guys. Right. Andy Johnson says need to get the Neo Geo Pocket Color going. Yes, you're right, Andy. I was doing some. See again, one of those projects I put off. I actually did a front light mod for my Neo Geo Pocket Color after demonstrating the Neo Geo SD, which is like the SD card cartridge for that system. And then I was modifying the screens on mine and Aaron's. I still haven't finished that. I need to do that. I know I do. Chris said, "Funny, I only just heard about that setup with zero tolerance." I think, Chris, we did have it set up. We had it working. We had it working on Link, but every so often it would desync with the other computer and break down. I think the mode that they put in to support the Link, they gave you a way to do a Link yourself. You could actually order an official cable from them to do it, from the people who manufactured the game. But it was always a bit unreliable, which is why they didn't kind of mass market it. But the feature is there in the game, and we did have it running. We think it's something to do with the fact that one of the Mega Drives we were using was a UK Model 2. I think it was a Mega Drive 2, and the other one was a US Model 1. It did have a 50-60 hertz mod on it. We think that may have had something to do with it, or the quality of the cable that Mike actually made. Message Mike Lees on our team if you want to know a bit more about it. He got the links on how to do it and what the connections were. What it basically does, it uses the 5 volt and one of the data connections on the actual. It uses the joystick ports and it creates a link through the joystick ports. I think you plug this weird double link through the port 2s, and then you put the controllers into port 1, and that creates the link. But obviously, because it's not the fastest data streams that way, that's why it kind of can desync, if you know what I mean. So I think we had it running for a while, but then we took it off after a while because it meant somebody had to be there to restart it every time it went down. So we didn't have extensive chance to test that. Um, right, and I got a link, yeah. So yeah, speak to Mike Lees about that. Should I not bin my Game Gear tuner? No, Chris. If you've still got it, mate, and you don't use it and you don't need it, I'd be interested in buying it off you, mate, because although it's pretty much useless, as long as you've got the video in cable that comes with it, that's very important. I need the RCA video, the composite video in. I need that because if you've got that and the tuner, we want to set something up with those, which will be really, really cool. So please do let me know about that, and I'll check that out. Let's look at some of the other comments, guys. Oh, there's so many comments. Thank you all for joining the stream today. I didn't know how many people would be interested. I know some of you are really stuck to it. I know some of you are only just logging in for 2 seconds, but thanks for joining me and sharing in a bit of this. This is what I wanted to get going. See a bit of chat to see what you've all been up to, and to let you know what we've been doing, and just have a bit of that banter that we would have been today. We would have been socialising. We'd have been drinking. We'd have been watching people making arses of themselves on the stage, losing at competitions. You know, we would have been probably seeing Paul Cole fall asleep in chairs after too many short nights and too many long drinks. So yeah, it would have been a hell of a laugh today, you know, and we're really missing that. Um, Ross says, "Hope you're good. Looking forward to whatever you have planned for future events." Vectrex in the background. Woo! Yeah, too true. Everybody loves a Vectrex. I've effectively got two, but now the second one will be going back to him, and I think Gareth will be attempting to fix this one in the end and get it running. He might just sell it on for parts. I don't know. Um, oh, John says he's got pictures of me in Manchester for the high score 2012 in the last. Oh, Gary, yeah, John, that was a good weekend. That was actually. It's really sad that didn't carry on when we did, because we did our Arcade Legends tournament in 2019 at Revival, the big Revival. And the Arcade Legends tournament we did there was an attempt to kind of bring that into Revival. Now, I may at some point, it wasn't my event originally, but there's no intention to carry that on. We may start doing a secondary event and bringing that back as a separate thing. We've now got venues where we can do it. We can do it regularly, so I may be bringing that back as a thing. So we'll see where that goes. But I've already spoken to a few people about that, so hopefully we could bring that high score tournament back. That would be really cool to do, and I know a lot of people who take part in that. I met some of you guys early on doing that back in the day. I know one of the photos, John. We're all sat outside in the little beer garden at the side, and I think there's me, you, Dave, Dave, what's his name from up your way, and who else is sat outside with us? I think it's Martin. Oh shit. Oh, I can remember his last name, but I think it's all of us sat outside anyway. I know we met Danny. Oh God, I forgot his name as well. He was a guy who was like a high score champ at all the old consoles back in the day. He was on Games Master and a load of the TV shows, and he was randomly in that pub that weekend. I was chatting to him there. Uh, yeah, we were lucky this year, Richard, in getting marching. I'm glad we were. Kevin Tasker says we need some revival in our lives. Yes, we do, mate. Especially you. Especially you. I think you missed out this year, didn't you? Because you got the new baby and all. You need to get back to it, mate. I know you're a family man, but don't skip on the hobbies. uh, you need to be in a boy band with those curtains. Yes, I know you've seen the pictures, Alan. That video is actually that was one of our lads' holidays that I took that video from. There's no way I'm ever showing the video of that online because that video is quite savage, and there's a lot of stuff going on in that nobody should ever see. The people who are in it know, and they did comment on it. Some of the guys there I don't see anymore, but that there was two holidays in particular. We did Butlins holidays, and it was when they still allowed single sex groups under the old rules, and it was just piss up and piss about weekends, and really enjoyed those. Now the videos I got here are from Blackpool, from Wales, from just when me and the missus were together. It was our wedding and things like that as well. There's just loads of home videos I was already transferring, but randomly on them I found, like I say, I found the Max Power videos, and I found my videos in the arcades and things like that. And it's weird because I didn't think at the time that would be significant, because at the time I wasn't heavily back into my games. Still loved an arcade, always did, but there was no nostalgia for it because this was about the year 2000, 2001. And of course, at that time, there wasn't a heavy nostalgia for it because the arcades hadn't fully died, but nobody had really started collecting again then at that point. So it was. I didn't realise how significant it was going to be until we get to this point in time. And like, I'm looking back on that thinking, oh my God, I own those machines, or I remember that one being there. You wouldn't find that now. It's crazy. Uh, right. I thought you were going to go left field and say you write erotic fiction now. You need to make pinball. Yes, Mike, I know I do. Yeah, Mike James there from Retro Gaming Roundup. He did our talks, obviously, this year and last as well. Mike actually came to me with some gear a long time ago to make a virtual pinball table. And I kept promising I'd get round to it once I'd kind of got all of my customer builds out of the way. Well, I'm no longer building. But what happened is I've run out of my workshop, I've run out of space, I've run out of time to do anything. And unfortunately this year, I did post recently, there's been a big problem with the access to my unit. So I haven't actually had access to my workshop, and there's a lot of builds need to be done. I actually need to move to a new premises to get anything done. But when I do, like I say, I've got a lot of projects that will be going underway. And that is definitely one of them, Mike. I've not forgotten, mate, and I know all the stuff's there. it's still all there, all nice, safely boxed, ready to be used. So don't worry about that. Right. Sion says it took him years to get a CD32, as says Gizit, as he always does. Yeah, the CD32, kind of an elusive console for me. See, me, I'm more of a console man than a computer guy because I can't be doing with messing around with keyboards and commands and desktops and that. It's great when you're at a PC, that's fine, that's at home. I think about things. I mean, I never minded emulation, never got a problem with it, but I do prefer authentic. What I don't like when it comes to authentic machines is a lot of the inconvenience we had to suffer and put up with. So I hate tape loading. I think it's something nobody should ever have to endure anymore because it's just bore ache. It's slow, it's unreliable, it's just annoying. Handling loads of software is a problem. Now, the Amiga has got some fantastic games. I've also got a lot of love for the Atari ST, one of the very few Atari systems I actually like. And but unfortunately, like the whole floppy disks are just are deader than tapes. Tapes are just annoying for all other systems. So when it comes to those kind of systems with physical media and desktops, it's a bit harder to mod them. But when you do, it makes them so much more accessible. Now the Amigas and that are kind of bulky. I like the games. I like to play the games. I'm not someone who messes about with systems. So the CD32, I've wanted it for a long time because all it basically is a tarted up Amiga 500 with a CD drive, and with the TF330, which is a hardware mod you can get for it. It basically accelerates it to make it perform better than like an A1200 in most respects. And obviously, you can use a compact flash card as storage, so you can run all the games straight from like a hard drive, which is just like an EverDrive, and that is the ideal way to play Amiga stuff to me. And I do prefer a controller in most respects, so it's good to have it that way. So I mean, after CD32 for ages, so I can actually do some Amiga gaming that I find accessible but authentic in the same kind of breath. But yeah, the price on them been creeping up because, truth be told, they're not terribly well built. Is one of the biggest problems with them. They also need a service. This one will go. I'll probably send this one off to Zeb again because he did recap my original. He also recapped my 1200 and set it up with a flash loader. I will be sending this one to Zeb to recap at some point for me, and then obviously I can have this one back, and this one should be fully working and kind of future proofed, if you know what I mean. So I'm glad I've got that now anyway to kind of explore that avenue. Right. Sai says he likes the original pad. It's different, but it feels like crap, mate. I remember playing it on like a demo kiosk back in Tandy back in the day. In fact, it was one of the last things I remember being set up. Tandy always used to set up. Hang on. Excuse me. Tandy always used to set up unusually like a kiosk. Most shops would have like the SNES or the Mega Drive or something set up. The Tandy in our town used to set up the kiosk for the rare consoles or like the kind of the bastard offspring or the third wheel in the pack. So that was the first place I saw the Jaguar. It was the first place I saw the CDI, and it was the first place I saw the CD32 as well. And they were set up on kiosks in these sorts. I don't know if they're all fancy dedicated kiosks like you can now buy on eBay or whatever, but like it was like a dedicated kiosk of sorts, designed to be a shop kiosk. And that was the first place I held it, and I was like, oh my god, what's going on with this pad? Like it's terrible. I hated it back then. Same with the Jaguar. Um, I believe a good pad is key to a good system, and SNES and Mega Drive both had fantastic pads. Um, the Jaguar, let's not even go there. The CDI wasn't really a gaming system. Um, and yeah, the CD32. I thought it was a very. I know they were just trying to be different, but it reminds me a lot of the old quick shot joypads, which were always the kind of horrible third party joypads made for the consoles, and they felt crap and they weren't really up to date for the time. So never liked the CD32 pad. Yeah, and it is worth a lot of money, Dave. You're right there. But even this third party one here, the Competition Pro, they're all going for good money for the CD32 because they're not as easy to come by. There weren't as many sold on that. Uh, Jay says his CD32, one of the audio channels stopped working, needs recapping. I think it might just be more than recapping. Mine actually had the first one I had that I had recapped. We recapped it, but the video, it completely lost all audio and video completely. We think one or several of the chips had died. You got a couple of broken CD32s. Best thing you can do, Jay, so I'd say, is if you've got several, pass it to someone who can make a good one out of three. Use the best shell, the best internals, and the best CD drive. Make one good one if you can, and then either get rid of the other ones for parts, or keep them for parts, or try and make a second half decent one out of the other two, and then whatever's left in the third one, sell that. I mean, I think I sold the scrap one that I had. Well, that needed a full fix. I think I sold that for 60 quid. So even as like parts, they're worth a fair bit. Saw one of these in a store at Skegness, but it wasn't for sale. Were you talking about the CD32, I assume, Rich? Or could have been the Mark III, I don't know, I was talking about it a little while ago. Captain Audio section, oh there you go, Dave's helping you there. Yeah, the Turbo Express, I love the Turbo Express, Richard. If you've got one, you'll know how cool they are. If you haven't, I'd say it's a highly recommended system to get, particularly if you don't have a PC Engine yourself. It could be the one to go for because you've got the advantage of being handheld, and you can get, like I say, an easy, they call it an easy mod board that allows you to do a video out using what is currently the audio jack. They convert that into a three-way RCA out jack instead, and that way you can hook up to a TV, and that way you can have TV out, so you can have it on a full screen TV. It's proper resolution. I'd advise doing that. GBA SP was a fantastic machine. You know what? I actually prefer the profile of the original Game Boy Advance because I like to have my hands. It's a bit too close. I don't like the comfort of the SP. I don't like using the shoulder buttons. I don't like the sharp edges of the console. I like the fact that it's flip up because it protects the screen. I like the fact that it's backlit. But obviously now you can backlight or replace a screen on the normal Game Boy Advances. That's the way I prefer to play. And my Game Boy Advance that I first got, I bought off someone cheap when I worked for the government, and it was a really nice little console. That was. Just needed a backlight. Just used to love Zero Tolerance. Glad you enjoy it. Need to play an eight player GameCube Mario Kart. Yeah, so we had that set up in 2018. We had 8-player Mario Kart set up with 8 42-inch screens, 8 GameCubes, 8 network adapters, and 8 copies of the game. We've done a couple of the events. We set it up with 2 systems and 8 players on 2 big projectors. But we are going to try and go for the ultimate one of the years and have 8 projectors, 8 GameCubes, and have like a whole area set up for it because it's a brilliant game to play on multiplayer. We've got enough systems to do it as well, so it's definitely worth doing. So just adjusting a few things here, guys. Preserve the battery on the phone. Yeah, the zero tolerance desync is probably caused by the US and UK console thing. That's likely to be a problem. If you can find the cable for that Game Gear tuner, Chris, yeah, please do it. I think it's a similar cable to what you get. I've had a few handheld Linux consoles that use a similar cable where it's like it's like the audio jack, the 3.5mm jack. Instead of just having the left and right, it's got the third channel, and that's for actually the audio. The video out. It's all composite video out. I think if you can get one of those, even if it's male on the other end, I could obviously use some couplers then and convert it into a kind of RCA in using one of those. So you can get one of those. I could probably use it. Bomb Jack and Dance Scoot. Yeah. I remember now, John. Yeah. You made a mod cable for my Famicom to use NES controllers with it instead. Yeah, Andy. The Famicom's a funny one. I actually use that. Did you know that the cable you use for the Famicom, the connector, is actually the same as the Neo Geo? So what I did, you've seen, I built some proper wooden Neo Geo controllers with proper arcade controls. I brought them to a couple of the events and I've sold a few to people. I built some more. And what I actually did for those is I took a NES extension cable, which you can actually use to create a breakout cable for a Famicom to plug in external controllers. And what I did is I used that, spliced that, and I used that to create the Neo Geo controllers because it's exactly the same. So handy little tip there if you ever want to do something yourself. Mark, how's it going, Mark? You're right, mate. With Gotex and Div MMCs, you just don't need the grief of discs and tapes anymore. Totally, Mark. See, that's the thing. See, I do like my old computer and that. I love the Spectrum. Spectrum. I was a specky boy back in the day. That was the first major gaming system we had, and I love using those systems. You need a proper keyboard to use them properly. But you've got the problem with you need to interface a decent joystick with it, so you need an interface anyway. Tape loading is bullshit. I know you can use MP3 players and things like that, but it's just the hassle. You want these days, and especially for advanced events, you want instant loading, instant changing. You don't be worrying about any of that because the type of games now, then are they really worth a 3 minute wait? Do you know what I mean? To wait for it to load, you might not even fancy it when it loads up, even if it does load. So it's like you need that kind of instant response. We become accustomed to that, and at least with flash loading, instant image loading, that's what you really want when you're messing with these old computers, because at least then you can easily chop and change them and find the best ones you can. Especially for those of us who've got precious little time these days to actually enjoy a game. Uh, Having that, I think, is really important. Right. Oh, let's have a look. So I've got so many comments, guys. I really appreciate all your input, by the way. Right. That was epic, but you cost me a damn fortune, and my wife wanted me to set up 8-player Mortal Kombat, Mario Kart style wedding. Yeah, I know, Andy. People who enjoyed the 8-player Mario Kart. See, those are the kind of things you come to the events to enjoy. It's the kind of thing we have got the money, the kit, and the time and the space to set up. You've always been capable of doing it. It's just that nobody ever had that equipment to do it. Now, of course, you can do it a far more. You could do it yourself, but again, it's a big expense for like one game. When you do it at events, it's the perfect opportunity to do it. And a lot of people don't even realise you could do these things like the zero tolerance thing we did with the Mega Drive. Nobody had even heard of that, knew anything about it, or had any idea of what to do. Nobody had a clue of that you could even do that. I didn't even know about it, and then Mike just randomly found it. And I thought, you know what, we've got to do it, and we'll be doing a lot more of these things for Freak Show in the future. So if you find anything really curious like that, let us know, and we'll see if we can do it. Yeah. Good to know about the third line on the cable, see what I can find. Yeah, I think that's the key to it. What an amazing wife, Andy. Yeah, buy a good one from Z Labs. There, okay, you're just talking between yourself. Fair enough, guys. But yeah, I'm glad you guys are having a lot of input here. I mean, there's so much going on. You're all chatting amongst yourselves. This is what I wanted this to be. You see, I wanted it to be a social thing. I want people to talk amongst themselves. If we were all there this weekend, I mean, I'm going to ask you now, guys. I mean, when you go to an event, I mean, what's your first port of call? I mean, what do you do when you first when you get to a revival? I mean, forget the other events. When you first get to a revival, I mean, why do you go? What's your main reason for going? Do you go to enjoy a drink? Do you get there for early doors? Do you sneakily try and ask for a way to get in before early doors while we're powering up so you can cherry pick the traders? Do you try and sneak in on the arcades early? Do you stay after hours? Do you nip out during the day? Do you stay for the duration? How many games do you play? Do you come for the talks? One of the main things I think one of the biggest appeals we've had in recent years with our events has been the talks, because we've got some of the most, we have had some of the rarest, we've definitely had some of the most obscure talks. We've picked up people that haven't been seen at any other events. I know there's big names certain people want us to get. I know there's certain people who are inaccessible to us because they're no longer in country or they just don't give interviews. We do our best. I mean, the bottom line is it's the one place we may spend money if we have to, but we wouldn't see the need to spend a fortune on getting a name there that you want to see if it kind of formed half of the budget of the half the budget of the event, but only like a fraction of you really wanted to see them. You know what I mean? So it's finding that balance. We have to do a lot of sweet talking. It usually takes quite a few months of prep, and then we have to usually sweeten the deal a little bit by sorting transport and a hotel stay and things like that, of course. But that's fair enough. We can understand that. We have had a couple of guests, unfortunately, who that they've basically they demand like just a charge just to turn up on the door, and they're people who like not many people would have really heard of, or they don't do that for other events or anything like that, and they're not like major celebs or anything, but they just like, "Oh, pay me and I'll be there," or like pay me and I'll turn up and sign something. It's like it's not really what we go for, because then it's a bit too much like a Comic Con, and we try to avoid that Comic Con feel. I know it's done at other events, and I know that's how Comic Cons and cosplay conventions and things work. You turn up, someone you idolise, you pay to stand in the queue, have a 2 second photo taken with them. You're out of pocket for 2 seconds of interaction. We try and invite people who were names who were never formally recognised back in the day or never really had that public exposure. We try to get those people in who've made some of the things you really remember, and you respect the work that they've done, and we want them to come, maybe do a little bit of signing, but mainly to come and talk about it and to interact with you properly. So when we consider the kind of, sorry guys, I've got something in my eye. When we consider the people we invite to the events, we always look for those type of people, the people who are either untapped or haven't done the events before, or really should be getting recognition they've not gotten before, and will come and they will stay and they will basically they will sit amongst their peers, other coders who were there who frequent the events, but people who really appreciated their work back in the day and talk about it. I mean, there's some guys who've come and they've been really humbled by the experience. um, Speaking of a couple here, I know that Dave Pleasance, I mean, he was like head of Commodore for a long period of time. He turns up to nearly every event going. He loves the atmosphere, he loves the recognition, he loves to share stories of what went on behind the scenes. You can pull Dave to one side at an event, and he will have you talking for ages. He will tell you all kinds of stories. He'll ask you what you want to know about. He's really good in that respect. And he's another guy who's always got something going on as well. He's a really interesting guy. Then there's other people who are always there. People like Jim Baggers, and he said it's become a massive part of his life, events and that, because back in the day, coders didn't get individual recognition, and he bounced between a couple of different software houses, and his name perhaps never really stuck on top of a list anywhere, but he was responsible for some major work back in the day. The same for anybody who worked at places like Ocean. Their individual names you may not have really recognised, and because the label took precedence, but it's become a big part of what they do. But then there's other guys who come, and like I say, they didn't even realise there was any kind of recognition at all for what they did. The guys from Gremlin were a big part of that. When Retro Asylum invited Rich, oh man, I'm brain fart here. Sorry, guys. There was Mike and Rich, who were from Gremlin. When he invited those guys to come and do the talk, I think Mike turned to Rich and he actually said to him, he says, "Is this some kind of joke? Like, we've set up for a bit of a fall here?" And he was like, "No, no, I think this is the real deal." And everyone was coming up and shaking their hands and and saying like, "We really appreciate what you did. We love the work that you did." And they said it was quite humbling for him. You know what I mean? And so it's quite funny to it's quite funny to see. that they're humbled by Dave Perry. He got quite, he was basically rubbished off telly in a rather unfair way. As funny as it was, and as much as he admits his wrongdoing at the time, it was like he had no intention of revisiting gaming at all until like I personally kind of talked him into it. You know what I mean? And when he come, he was amazed at just the recognition, and the people have only got nice things to say. There's still some dickheads out there, but he says that most people have only got nice things to say. And he just enjoyed. He was only going to come to the event, do his talk and go. But he ended up hosting all the competitions. He ended up, staying, and he just stayed the whole time, sat having pints with people. And he says everyone was just buying him drinks and just asking for a chat, and would just sign my copy of Mario and things like that. And he said it was nice to just nice to have that. Uh, right, just having a look. Sorry at some of your other comments here, guys. Um, John Ramiro was great. Yeah, we had John there a couple of times over the years. We first had John in 2014. John Ramiro. 2014 was a great event. It was the second year, so we'd already proven ourselves in 2013. 2014 was a much bigger event at the same venue at Dunstall Racecourse in Wolverhampton, and we had the second room upstairs, and we made a big deal of John coming. The unfortunate thing with John coming was we didn't sort that out until a fortnight before the event, and we'd have to spend a little bit of money getting him over to the UK, and obviously everybody knows now he's now stayed this side of the pond, and he's in Ireland. He lives in Ireland now, and he set up his new software house there. But yeah, we kind of he was already coming over for a honeymoon at the time. Was the story behind it? Sorry, not a honeymoon, an anniversary. Sorry, and I think Brenda was already over here speaking on something down on the south coast, and they were going to have a bit of a break afterwards. So we arranged to pay for his shipping to come here a little bit early, and then they would come to the event, and then she would go and do what she was doing with the talks down south, and then they would go off and have their break. I think it was already planned to be in Ireland, and we had them come, and that was a really good thing to do. And then obviously they came back briefly in 2018, where John did a talk on his own and was signing some stuff, obviously over on Chris's store. That was pretty cool. I personally really enjoyed having the Rare guys there. I mean, Rare, the guys represent for the Midlands anyway, because obviously they were based in Ashby de la Zeus back in the day, and I mean they're still in the industry now from back in the day, and they still love what they do. We've had some of the guys come, Kev Bayliss, those guys there, they're a big thing to me because their days of working on things for the NES, the SNES, and obviously my favourite ever arcade game with Killer Instinct. That was massive to me, and I still do talk to a lot of those guys pretty regularly, and it was really cool getting those into come and take part on the machines and sign up all the stuff, and they really enjoyed being there and just socialising with everyone, and they said they'll come back anytime. They took a break in 2019 because they said they'd already done 2 years running, which is fair enough. But they have said they will come back at some point in the future. So if anybody wants to see Rare again, we will probably get some different names from there, and we'll get them to come again. So Andy Johnson says, I would love to see Yuzo Koshiro at a talk. Well, it's funny you should mention that, Andy. You know what? Japanese names. It would be. It's a possibility. We do know certain Japanese developers would be open to it, but we would most likely have to sort out an interpreter for a lot of the ones who want to talk, and obviously there's quite a lot of cost involved in getting them over. If we were to get anyone from Japan, we have looked into it, and anything can happen, but a lot of it will depend on how this COVID thing pans out and travel arrangements. There's no way we could book someone from abroad at the moment in the current climate. Even next year, I think travel restrictions will be a lot tighter. There'll be less insurance available in the event that something goes tits up, so we'll have to rethink that one, but we would like to do that at some point in the future. Jake says he likes to orientate himself, socialise and drink. Matt Boyce says it's just a good nostalgia trip. um, yeah, Andy says, yeah, game, socialise and drink. Mike James says crack. I don't know if that's the crack or some crack, but whatever you're coming for, Mike, I'm sure there's some to be had. If you feel like you need crack at one of our events, I think you're not getting enough sleep, mate, or enough excitement in your life. Nolan Bushnell, yeah, Dave. Um, Spoken to Nolan. Watch the space. Um, I had a curry and chips and a long chat with Kevin Toms last year. Surreal but amazing, top guy. You know what? Kevin's a great guy. He's very down to earth. He loves his football. Loves his football. And if you do have him on Facebook, by the way, he does regularly do live streams where he talks about the development of games he's working on, his interaction with games he's kind of co-developing, projects he's working on, and just for general chats as well. So if you have got him on Facebook, do sign up to his live streams because he will talk about that stuff a lot. We'll definitely get him back at some point in the future. It was nice to have Kevin Toms come to Revival when we were doing it at Bescott Stadium because obviously with it being like kind of a major football ground, it was very apt to have him there. And obviously we had the guys from Sensible Software there, and obviously they were talking about Sensible Soccer. We had John Hare and the guys from there. It was kind of cool to have all those guys there at a football stadium. A couple of years ago, we were going to have Dino Dini as well, and he'd just done. It's just a shame it didn't pan out right, but he just released. Was it Kickoff Revival? Now we thought that was super apt because it was called Kickoff Revival, and we was going to have him come and talk about it at a football stadium at an event called Revival. But if anybody who does or may know a little bit about that, the game unfortunately bombed quite hard, and he took it a bit hard. But he was going to be asked to come to the event. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out. Maybe we can get him to come in future. Maybe that's softened up a bit to that now, but yeah, we'll see about that one. Matt Boyce got a 3DO with a light gun, but only works if I put it right on the screen and fire any ideas. Look, see, this is like the event now, guys, because you're exchanging tips and tricks amongst you. You're asking for repairs and things like that. I'm amazed none of you are buying and selling between yourselves on here. um, yeah, I'm going to avoid the politics, guys. I've already spoken on that recently. Um, yeah, yeah. I'll learn Japanese. Yeah, Mike. Learn fast, mate. Learn fast. You had to learn how to deal with Americans for your podcast. So yeah, I'm sure you could. I'll tell you what, Mike. If and when we do uh, continue to go, obviously I'd like you. I'm saying it now quite publicly. Obviously, we speak privately, but yeah, I would like you. I like the way you do your talks, and I know you've enjoyed doing them. And I would like you to take part in future talks events again. You've done quite a few for us over the years, I know, and certainly if there's anybody you can think of, anyone you can recommend, maybe someone we could even arrange to ship over with your compadre Scott. Maybe get them to come over, somebody from the States. Maybe we could arrange something there and have them come over with Scott for the event. Because there's a couple of names from the States I would like to get over. And maybe we can arrange something there, and obviously we can sort out transport and whatever else that we need to for the guys. I think that would be amazing. So if there's any ideas there, you can think of anybody. Maybe Scott can think of anybody, and maybe we can make that happen. Yeah, I think we can arrange that, mate. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, some of the Japanese guys I would definitely like to get over, and we have approached a couple of people. Um, I'm not going to say who, but yeah, we would definitely need probably an aid of some kind. We could, to be fair, we could probably hire somebody over here to do that because Japan's very different to a lot of the other countries in that you either do speak English or you don't. There's no real middle ground, if you know what I mean. And quite a lot of the developers, from what I understand, when they interact online, they interact through like an aid, if you know what I mean. And those people kind of help them with any kind of English interaction. And I think if we were to get some of them over to help them out being here, we'd probably have to hire some kind of aid to accompany them. to help them while they're here, and to obviously help do direct translations for talks and things like that. But yeah, I mean, you could certainly facilitate that, mate. That'd be really cool to do. There's so many things we could do. Yeah, yeah. Right. But yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of ideas, guys. A couple of people who are good translators. That would be a good thing to know, Wayne. Actually, because if we ever do go down that route, that would be pretty cool. Um, it's just occurred to me, by the way, guys. I've actually uploaded the wrong photo onto this stream, so that kind of killed it. I uploaded the photo for the stream when I announced it, but on the actual, I've only just realised above the chat up here I haven't got not revival at the top of it. So anyway, it's a bit too late for that. I've been talking for two and a quarter hours already. So um, right, I'm just thinking what else I've got to cover, guys. I've covered a lot already. I've talked about some of the things I'm doing, some of the things I've been up to. There is probably a lot more I could talk about. I mean, I've played a lot of games this year. There's a lot of games I want to talk about. There's a lot of games. There's a lot of things that have been held back because of the COVID situation. There's a lot of things we're waiting on, movies, games, and everything, which have been held back because of this. But I've played more games this spring and summer and autumn than I've played in years, especially newer games. And I've got to say, for me, there's a couple of games that stand out as games of the year for me. And I know not many people are going to agree. The first of them is Last of Us Part 2. And the reason being is because I understood all the flack it came under when it came out, and I do partly agree to an extent with what people were saying. However, it still turned out to be a fantastic game. The mechanics were so much better. There's a lot more combat going on in there. The story pans out really, really well. The graphics, the sound are fantastic, and besides the one key component of the story that was unfortunately really annoying right at the start. Um, the rest of it panned out really well, and I think it's got to be game of the year for me in terms of new games. I was hoping I'd be able to say it was Resident Evil 3 would be my game of the year. But if you've read the as I was talking about earlier, I'm plugging again. If you read the Fusion Resident Evil special, I actually give quite a lengthy cover of the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remake, in which I explain why they were both really good games. Even though I preferred the original Resident Evil 3, of the remakes, Resident Evil 2 remake was probably a much better remake because they rushed number 3 slightly. They could have waited another year and still got away with it. Um, and they did rush it a little bit. Still a really good game, but nowhere near as long enough and not quite as much replay value as number 2. So, yeah, Resident Evil 3, loved it. Loved the remake, but not my game of the year. Last of Us Part 2 is definitely my game of the year. It was a fantastic game, but the one game I've been glued to, absolutely glued to this year, has been Streets of Rage 4. Right? I've covered it in some earlier streams on my Yami on Retro Gaming channel. I've talked about it a lot online. Um, it came out back in, was it April or May, I think it was. I bought it on a whim, and you know what? I have played it every other day since then. They've already updated it to do some balancing changes to it and some slight improvements to the interface and the multiplayer. Um, but it's just a fantastic game, and it doesn't matter. See, I kind of brought up on arcade brawlers. You see, I grew up and I love things like Turtle, Simpsons, Final Fight, Vendetta, Growl, Arabian Fight, Arabian Magic, Knights of the Round, all of those brawlers. Love those brawlers in the arcade, and obviously Streets of Rage is one of the best home brawlers that was you could possibly get. But I never fell in love with any as much as I did with the first one. Everyone talks about Streets of Rage 2 being the best game on the Mega Drive, the best selling, the better game, but I always preferred the first one, and I hated the fact they removed my favourite character after the first one and never touched him again. Now, I covered the Streets of Rage remake game a few months ago on one of my live streams, and I have it out at every event on my emulation systems. When 4 came out, I expected it to be a bit of a loss, but they have paid it every bit of attention it needed. All the old characters are there, all the old moves are there. The new characters add so much more depth and dimension. The combo potential is massive. You've got boss rush modes, you've got arcade modes, you've got versus modes, you've got the online feature, you've got 4 player local multiplayer, and that will be something we definitely put out at the next revival because I've yet to play it that way, and I think people will really get a kick out of it, if you excuse the pun. But I've been playing that most nights, most days. I will stick it on for an hour and play it through because I absolutely love it. It's a fantastic game, and I think it is. I think it is absolutely brilliant. And pretty soon there'll be a DLC coming for it as well, in which they're talking about adding an entire new rack of levels, new bosses, new playable characters, and a load of other changes to it. And that will be one DLC I will pay for because it's a justifiable DLC, not just hat collections. If you want to do costume changes, fine, but we're talking about proper additional content worthy of something that may have gone into a sequel. If they do that and they do it at the right price, you know I'll buy it, and that's what I want. It's a retro style game that isn't unnecessarily been changed into 3D polygonal gaming or been changed completely from source or used gimmicks. It's just good old fashioned beat 'em up, well balanced, well put together as a two-player game, and I think it does the original game's perfect justice. If you've not played it yet, seriously, if you've got a passing interest in Streets of Rage, you'll love it. If you like Streets of Rage and you really like brawlers like I do, or versus fights or whatever, you'll love it. I'm convinced you'll love it. I think it's fantastic. Certainly one of the best games of the year, and it's one game I'm still playing now, and I recommend you play that even more. So those are my 2 choices for games of the year. Regarding other games, though, um, because we've had this whole lockdown thing, and because of the mentality of you've got to kind of entertain yourself because there's nowhere to go, so you've got to kind of look after yourselves and find things to do yourself. Me and the missus, like, we watch a lot of TV, watch a lot of movies. With there not being so many releases this year, there's not been as much to kind of get our teeth into. Even good TV shows have been scarce. So once you've gone through Netflix and watched all your box sets, what do you do? So we started delving, looking. My wife used to play some games with me, but not too many. And we were looking for games that we really wanted to play and enjoy together. Now she used to like me watch me playing like survival horror games and things like that. Um, but they're not as watchable as they used to be, I don't think. And so once I've kind of replayed them for the 10th time, she's not that interested. What we did discover, though, thankfully, were the kind of some of the interactive novel survival horror games that have been released in the last couple of years that have completely passed me by. I like big story driven games, and I appreciate there's not an awful lot of gameplay in those, in some of these novel type games, but at the end of the day, it's a piece of entertainment I feel like I'm connected with. And this year we've played a whole host of them. The first one we played was Until Dawn. Now, Until Dawn came out a few years ago now, and it's got some quite big names in there. It's got Hayden Panettiere as the main character in it. The guy who played Freddie Mercury in the Freddie Mercury biopic, he's the other main character in it. And there's a couple of other names in there as well. And it plays out like a teen horror movie, but it is so, like, the graphics are really nice, the story is really long, and you just basically go through and you have to make decisions, and there's a few quick time events you have to do, which you think would make for a hollow game, but when you can change the outcome and the endings, depending on how you respond to things, and when it's quite easy to get yourself killed, the name of the game isn't necessarily to save everybody. Um, it makes for quite a good experience, and you can also go back and kind of revisit it and try for the other endings. There's collectibles and stuff to find, and as long as it's got a good story and good acting, it plays out really well. So we played that one through, found that one brilliant. Was disappointed to know it didn't get a true sequel. There was going to be one, but apparently it was cancelled. So we started looking at some others. So Until Dawn We played through, thought was brilliant. We looked at Heavy Rain, which was originally a PS3 game, which wasn't as good and a little bit short, but still quite good to play. There's a game called Beyond Two Souls, which has got Ellen Page as the main character in it, and that took me by surprise. Actually, we had that as a double pack with Heavy Rain, and I wasn't as interested in it, and yet it turned out to be a much better game, and the story plays out really well in that as well. Um, what else have we played? We started looking at the Dark Pictures anthology, the first of which came out last year. There was supposed to be 8 in a series coming out over 2 years, and in the end, they got massively delayed for various reasons by Supermassive Games, and only 2 have been released. The first one came out late last year, I think it was, called Man of Medan, and it's about some people who end up on like a weird, like a lost ghost ship kind of thing, and you have to play as all of the characters, and the outcomes change depending on your decisions. And that played out really well. That was a really good game, but we found it a little bit too short. It kind of ends just as it starts to get really, really good, but it has got some shit yourself scary parts, some really cool imagery, and decent acting. And then we also downloaded the next one in the series. Came out just the other day on Halloween, and that was Little Hope. It's called, and that one's really cool. You basically the people who kind of find themselves in a bus crash, and you're in this creepy like midwestern town in America, and it's all like oldie worldy flashbacks, and you start to see visions of people during the witch trials, and there's all creepy shit going on in the town. It's really really weird, but that one plays out really well. We're still playing that back now. There's a few different modes you can go through, and this weekend we're going to be going through those and playing those back and trying the other modes on that. So really really pleased we bought that, and apparently there's going to be at least 6 more in the series. The next one's called The House of Ashes, and that'll be out sometime next year, and that looks pretty interesting as well. And I'm hoping there'll be a few more of those games. If you like something a bit different, I recommend you check those out because they are different things to experience. And like I say, it's something like me and the missus can enjoy, like we enjoy a movie, but it's a lot longer than a movie. You know, it can run up to like 8 hours of gameplay, and then you can go back through it and find all the collectibles, and it's just really cool to watch, even if you're not the one with the controller, you know. So yeah, a few of you guys here talking about other things. Did you play the Golden Axe demo Sega release for their 60th? No, I heard about that recently. I haven't touched on that yet, Andy, but I will be taking a look at that because I love Golden Axe, and that's the exact kind of remake I wanted to see of Golden Axe. I wish somebody would do it. Last of Us 2 is really good. I definitely recommend you check it out. What else we got? Still waiting for the collector's edition. Yours hasn't come yet, Andy. God, a lot of people who ordered with what they're called, limited edition, special edition, whatever they're called, were really disappointed because the quality of the thing that come was a bit naff considering how long they'd waited. So I'd lower your expectations a little bit, but I understand why people did it. I did a vid, very unfinished. Oh, the Golden Axe demo, yeah, not tried it yet. Um, oh, your first brawler was Target Renegade on the Spectrum. Yeah, I played that quite a lot actually. Target Renegade. There was also another one just called Renegade on the Spectrum. That was a side-scrolling brawler. It was a bit naff, a bit more basic than that. But I remember completing it back in the day because I found a cheat where you could basically stand in one place, put auto fire on, and just complete it without getting hit. um, yeah, so those are my choices for the games of the year anyway, and that's kind of where I'm going with my gaming. Probably going to go in and have a bit of a session on it this evening after we've had Strictly Come Dancing on, because one of my guilty, slightly effeminate pleasures is I do like to watch the dancing on the weekend. I really like Strictly Come Dancing. It's something we do like to watch, and yeah, we're going to be watching that shortly. But yeah, I think I'm kind of spent there, guys. I have been talking for 2.5 hours. I've been talking for 2.5 hours. I could talk forever. There's so much more I could say. All I wanted to do today, guys, was just come on. and give you a bit of the chat and a bit of the banter, the kind of things a lot of you would have spoke to me about at the event yourselves. If you'd have seen me at the event this weekend, I know a lot of this chat you would have been spoken to me about this weekend anyway. So I thought I'd just come on today and do this because I just wanted to kind of reconnect with everybody and remind everyone we know you're there. Remind everybody that Revival is still there. Revival is still going, and remind you that obviously we'll be back when all this is gone. But we're not going to be the first ones back because we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't put people at risk like that. I don't think it's worth the risking, putting people's hopes up and potentially having things cancelled. We will be back, but we're not going to be back probably until later next year at the earliest. So you're just going to have to wait, guys. However, we do have plans to do something a little less formal, a little bit more fun than just me yapping to you like this. We do have plans in place to do something in the new year, a little more virtually, but it will involve more members of the team. It will involve setting up a lot more things technologically to do it, and we're on about doing some form of interactive event. So if you want to see that, drop me a message. We'll have a chat about it, and I'll see if we can incorporate it in some way. But yeah, the guys have all been speaking, and we're talking about doing a virtual event whereby we will do some segments where we cover quite a few aspects you will see at events with some faces you've seen at events, and give a little bit of that revival flavour. Maybe brighten up your average Saturday like today with a bit more entertainment from people more than just myself, and just give a little bit of that revival flavour back to you while we're waiting to all get back together. It's the best we can do in the meantime, and I think people will really enjoy that when we do it. We've got some plans down on paper, but I'll talk more about that after Christmas, I think. I will be back on the Yam Yam Retro Gaming channel doing some videos of some of the things I've shown here. This obviously will be copied now and uploaded to the Revival YouTube channel. I need to sort out how to link that properly with my software. It wouldn't let me do that today, which is why I'm streaming on the Revival Facebook page, but the Yam Yam YouTube channel. I will put it all onto the Revival channel when it's relevant, like today. But I will keep you informed on that. So please do check out my Yam Yam Retro Gaming channel. Be sure you're supporting all the local traders, all the retro traders. Be sure you're keeping yourself safe. Be sure you're following all the podcasts. Be sure you're following all the people on the scene who make this scene happen. And it's going to be a while before I talk to you kind of one-to-one like this. So yeah, whatever you're doing, celebrate a good Christmas. Some people have moaned about people celebrating it too early, and you know what? There's not been much to celebrate this year, so why not make an extended celebration at home? Put your deckers up early, speak to family, phone people you ain't spoke to in ages. Enjoy the people you've got at home with you. If you've got a support bubble, make the most of it. Enjoy a good Christmas. Stay safe. Try not to get too depressed. Enjoy some gaming while you can. If you've got to go to work, you've got to go to work. Come home. You'll never get as much opportunity to sit at home and reflect as you've had this year. And you're going to get a little bit more yet. So make yourself comfortable, keep yourself safe, and enjoy yourself while you can. Because life can sometimes get a little bit quicker, get a little bit ahead of us. And I've realised that more than ever this year. And I'm glad I've had time to stop. So make sure you're doing the same. And before you know it, we'll all be back in a room somewhere, putting down points of Banksies, knocking back the shots, playing our games, buying our shit, taking the piss out of the taking the piss out of the usual suspects, and enjoying a bit of a game together. Maybe seeing some new guests, just having a while of a time like we used to. And I know you're going to enjoy it. Revival will be back, and we'll definitely deliver you something to be proud of when we do come back. But have a good Christmas, everybody. Thanks for joining me on the stream. And make sure you are posted to our Facebook and the YouTube, because if and when we do sort out this virtual event, I want you all to be first to know about it. And we'll give you a shout and let you know what we're doing with regards to that. And you can join us for that. And there might be some prizes to be won and some giveaways. So make sure you do. But for now, guys, you take it easy, and I will catch you very soon.